Chapter 53. Crack, crack, crack. A dull and deep roar sounded from Zhou Yi's body. Brilliant divine brilliance bloomed from Zhou Yi's body, illuminating the dark underground space. Good. The pressure, just now, made my divine body grow by a level. Zhou Yi felt the vigorous vitality in his body and the surging power in his body. He nodded with a smile. Congratulations, Your Majesty. The spirit of the heavenly book congratulated appropriately. Zhou Yi was in high spirits, but Li Yu was frowning. Should I take it or not? Should I take it or not? Li Yu's face was as bitter as a bitter gourd, and a handful of his hair was pulled off. The bronze immortal palace. This thing was really coveted. How could a person like Li Yu, who liked to take advantage of others, be willing to not take such a big advantage? If he didn't get it, it would be like digging out his heart. If he took this thing, the consequences would be unpredictable. Although Vicious had severed her own primordial spirit and split it into two, but regardless of whether she had reached the immortal level or not, even if she only had the power of the Great Emperor, how could Li Yu, a fake who could only scare people, stop a real Great Emperor? He would definitely be slapped to death. If I take the bronze immortal palace and return immediately, is it feasible? Li Yu still had the mentality of a loser, and he couldn't wait to move all the good things to his home. At this moment, his wishful thinking prevailed. Risking my life over my wealth. Let's go all out. Li Yu immediately gave the spirit of the heavenly book an order, instructing Zhou Yi to take the bronze immortal palace. When Zhou Yi walked near the bronze immortal palace, Li Yu gave the order to take it. The bronze immortal palace was even larger than the demon emperor's tomb. In order to take it, Li Yu specially spent 2,000 points of energy to open a larger recycling channel. Buzz, a huge black hole instantly enveloped the bronze immortal palace. In the blink of an eye, the bronze immortal palace disappeared. So easy? Seeing the bronze immortal palace appear in the resource warehouse, Li Yu was dumbfounded. I was so scared that I almost peed my pants. It turned out to be so easy? This is really... Li Yu shook his head. He felt that he was being too careful. The bronze immortal palace is mine. That's great. Huh. After dispelling the worries in his heart, Li Yu finally relaxed and laughed heartily. Just as the laughter left his throat, it got stuck. Ew. Li Yu was startled by the sudden appearance of a small figure at the door. It was a little girl. Her clothes were very old, and her face was full of stains. She looked like a little beggar in the slums. However, her eyes were very clear and bright, faintly flickering with a multicolored radiance. Just this pair of eyes was enough to make people overlook the tattered clothes, the stains on the face, and everything else. In those eyes, one could clearly feel the purity and nobility that came from the soul. Her name was Little Nan Nan. She was a divine infant. Other than that, she also had a name that shook both ancient and modern times. Vicious. Not only was she ruthless to others, she was even more ruthless to herself. She was unyielding and unyielding. She was not arrogant or discouraged. Step by step, she was determined and persistent. She moved forward, forward, forward again. Therefore, as an ordinary person, she stepped onto the peak of the world. Seeing this person and thinking about her experience, Li Yu felt as if thunder had exploded in his heart, waking him up. Ever since he came to this world, he had been doing whatever he wanted. He had indeed become arrogant and a little complacent. This mentality was not right. Now that he had met an opponent that was beyond his imagination, he was afraid. This mentality was also not right. So what if she was a Arch? He would use up all his energy, the green Lotus Emperor weapon, the heart of the demon god, and the bronze immortal palace. Even if he could not defeat her, he would still give her a hard time. Li Yu took a deep breath and calmed down. I didn't know that the Arch was coming. Sorry for not welcoming you. Li Yu adjusted his mentality and nodded at Little Nan Nan with a smile. You do know me, Little Nan Nan said expressionlessly. Her young voice revealed a depth and vicissitudes that did not match her age. Li Yu smiled and did not answer. Little Nan Nan did not care whether Li Yu answered or not. Instead, she continued, when I was in the forbidden area of the remote antiquity, I heard you say something to me. You said that the person I was waiting for had returned. At this point, little Nan Nan raised her head and looked at Liu. Now, I'm here to ask you for an answer. Is he really back? Huh? Liu was stunned. Originally, he thought that little Nan Nan had come to him because he had instructed Zhou Yi to take away the bronze immortal palace. He did not expect it to be because of this. In an instant, Liu understood what was going on. What was the most important thing to Vicious? It was not to become an immortal, but to wait for his return in the mortal world. What was the bronze immortal palace? What was becoming an immortal? The purpose of Vicious cultivation had never been to become an immortal. She just wanted to live and wait for that person to return. Liu suddenly felt a little sour in his nose and took a deep breath. Have you seen him? Liu did not answer little Nanan's question directly. Instead, he asked her a question. I've seen him. Little Nanan reached out and took out an oiled paper bag. She gently opened it, revealing a few steaming soup buns. Looking at these buns, little Nanan's eyes turned red. Then, do you think he's the person you're waiting for? Liu looked at little Nan Nan and asked softly. I don't know either. Little Nan Nan slowly shook her head, wrapped the buns carefully, put them away, and looked up at Liu. Since you've said that, I'm not going to let you go. You must know something. So, I want an answer from you. Little Nanan's face was still expressionless, but Liu knew very well that under the calm surface, there must be monstrous waves and turbulent undercurrents. If you can give me an answer. You took my elixir of immortality and my bronze immortal palace. I can overlook it. Is that so? Liu nodded and looked at little Nan Nan with a smile. He knew what little Nanan meant. If he could not give a satisfactory answer, then she would definitely make a fuss. With your cultivation, you must have gone back in time and looked into the past. You must be very clear about the ins and outs of the matter. At this point, Liu pointed at a wild flower outside the window. There are no two flowers that are exactly the same in this world. But you've already found the same flower. Isn't the answer obvious? But he doesn't have the memories of the past. Little Nan Nan replied hesitantly. Is this very important? In the past, that person was your brother. Now, this person can also be your brother. Liu smiled. The soup buns are delicious. Eat them while they're hot. After you're done, ask your brother to buy more for you. Ask my brother to buy more for me? Little Nan Nan hesitated for a moment, then took out the bag of soup buns again and gently opened it. She slowly reached out and picked up one, then put it in her mouth and gently bit into it. The warm soup flowed into her mouth and the fresh taste seeped into her tongue. So delicious. Little Nanan's eyes glistened with tears as she took a big bite of the soup buns and said, So delicious. Thank you. Little Nan Nan raised her head and looked at Liu. She smiled. Her smile was like a flower. You're welcome. Liu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. It would be best if they didn't fight. Actually, Liu also knew that Vicious wasn't really here to ask for an answer. She already had an answer. She was only here to find someone to agree with. Then, I'll go ask my brother for soup buns. Goodbye. Little Nan Nan giggled, like a little girl who went to ask her brother for candy. Goodbye. Liu waved his hand and watched as little Nan Nan turned into light and disappeared in front of him. Yi Fan, although I stole a lot of things from you, giving you an extremely powerful little sister can be considered as settling the karma. Leaf. Chapter 54. Little Nan Nan left. Liu began to deal with the aftermath and prepare for his return. The first thing he had to deal with was Zhou Yi's so-called emperor weapon. After collecting the chi of heaven and earth, in addition to the credit of collecting the bronze immortal palace, Liu couldn't treat Zhou Yi too badly. He had to give Zhou Yi a sip of soup. Spirit of the heavenly book, prepare to refine a weapon embryo for Zhou Yi. After Liu gave the order, the spirit of the heavenly book immediately communicated with Zhou Yi. Your Majesty, you have obtained the chi of heaven and earth, and with the help of the energy of the bronze immortal palace, I can refine a supreme treasure for you. Your Majesty, please design a weapon that suits your heart. Great. Hearing this news, Zhou Yi was overjoyed and began to think about what his weapon should look like. In our tradition, the artifacts that represent the identity of the great emperor are the 9 cauldrons, the Xianyuan sword, and the imperial jade seal. Which one should I choose? The imperial jade seal is eliminated first. Qin Shi Huang's items are just too weak. The 9 cauldrons are 9 great cauldrons. There are too many. It's already a blessing to successfully refine one emperor weapon. 9 is simply unimaginable. If I only take 1 cauldron, it will lose the meaning of the 9 cauldrons. What about the Xianyuan sword? The sword of the holy path, the sword of the sovereign path. Moreover, the word Xianyuan is very compatible with my origin. It seems that the Xianyuan sword is very suitable. Thinking of this, Zhou, he had already made a decision in his heart. Spirit of the heavenly book, my emperor weapon will be the Xianyuan sword. He imagined the appearance of a Xianyuan sword in his mind, and let the spirit of the heavenly book simulate a Xianyuan sword. A thick and simple long sword with a length of 3 feet and 3 inches appeared. One side of the sword was engraved with the sun, moon, and stars, and the other side was engraved with mountains, rivers, and plants. One side of the hilt was engraved with the techniques of farming and animal husbandry, and the other side was engraved with the strategy of unifying the 4 seas. It was vast, simple, ancient, and heavy. Seeing this sword, Zhou Yi seemed to feel the excitement of cutting through thorns, purifying the universe, and the firmness of an unswerving determination. Everything came down to one word: holy path. This is the weapon used by my ancestors in the legends. The inheritance of the torch flame would never end. Now, let this legendary sword regain its glory in my hands. I shall wield this sword to cleanse the universe and cleanse the universe. With his blood boiling in his heart, Zhou, he was so excited that his whole body trembled slightly. We pledge our lives to follow you. The spirit of the heavenly book knelt down in front of Zhou. Very good. Zhou, he laughed and instructed the spirit of the heavenly book. Refine according to this style. Yes, the spirit of the heavenly book replied without hesitation. However, only Liu had the authority to make this decision. Xianyuan sword? Zhou, this brat is quite ambitious. Liu nodded. Fine. Since you're so determined, I'll help you. System, break down the green copper fragment of the immortal cauldron and fuse it with the Xianyuan qi to forge a Xianyuan sword for Zhou Yi. Following Liu's command, the system reacted instantly. The green copper melted, and the black and yellow qi fused together, forming a 3-foot-long sword. Seeing the Xianyuan sword, which was exactly the same as the legend, Liu nodded with a smile. Zhou Yi, the ancestor has treated you well. With the immortal cauldron fragment and the Xianyuan qi, the essence of your Xianyuan sword is no weaker than an emperor weapon. Although it's only a sword embryo now, as long as you continue to refine it, you can definitely refine it into a real emperor weapon. Liu sighed and waved his hand. The Xianyuan sword in the resource warehouse was instantly transferred to the heavenly book of the highest heavenly book. Your Majesty, I have fulfilled my mission. The spirit of the heavenly book immediately handed over the Xianyuan sword. Good, good, good. Zhou, he took out the Xianyuan sword and held it in his hand. He reached out and stroked the blade. Feeling the vast power contained in the sword, Zhou Yi's heart was at ease. Zhou Yi's matter is almost done. Liu nodded. With a thought, Liu asked the system to create a virtual projection and appear beside Zhou Yi. Ancestor. Seeing Liu appear, Zhou Yi hurriedly came up to pay his respects. Not bad, not bad. Liu glanced at the Xianyuan sword in Zhou Yi's hand and nodded. The emperor weapon has just been formed. As long as you grow and continue to refine it, this sword will definitely become an emperor weapon. Zhou Yi, the fledgling has to leave the nest in the end before it can spread its wings and fly high. The ancestor is leaving. You will have to rely on yourself in the future. Ancestor. Zhou Yi raised his eyes to look at Liu, still a little reluctant in his heart. There's no need for that. Liu smiled and continued. I came here this time to say goodbye to you. Since you have chosen your own path, you must walk it unswervingly. Yes. Zhou Yi bowed and accepted the order. All right, Let's part ways here. Li Yu waved his hand, and his figure instantly disappeared. Ancestor is still leaving? He looked in the direction where Li Yu disappeared and stood there in a daze for a while. The road is under my own feet. After the baby learns to walk, the adult will let go of his hand and let him move forward by himself. Even if he stumbles, he will eventually walk with his head held high. Ancestor, I won't let you down. He held the hilt of the sword in his hand tightly. Spirit of the heavenly book, let's go. Is it finally time to leave? In the hall under the volcano, Liu looked up at the sky. The sky was vast, and the clouds in the sky were rolling. Seeing this vast sky and the beautiful scenery around, Liu suddenly felt a little reluctant in his heart. Is there still something in my heart? Liu turned his head to look in the direction of Mist Grotto Heaven. The figure of a little girl lingered in Liu's mind. I'd better go and say goodbye. That pair of eyes that were as clear as moonlight appeared in his mind again. Cute little Ting Ting. Big brother is here to see you. The escape light soared into the sky and went straight into the clouds. Not long after, Liu's figure landed in the town. What happened? His figure appeared in the town. The place where Liu appeared was the former Li family courtyard. Ever since Liu destroyed the Li family, he handed little Ting Ting and old man Jiang to the people of Mist Grotto Heaven to take care of. In Liu's opinion, this must be foolproof. Old man Jiang and little Ting Ting didn't have any life-and-death enemies. Moreover, with the people of Mist Grotto Heaven looking after them, they would definitely be able to live peacefully until they were found by the Jiang family. However, the scene in front of him made Liu frown tightly, and an ominous feeling arose in his heart. What happened? Liu pushed open the door in confusion and walked into the Li family courtyard. Who is it? The sound of the door being pushed open alarmed the people in the courtyard. With a burst of sound, several figures rushed out in an instant. Judging from the movements of these people, they were obviously cultivators. Celestial, venerable. Among the figures that rushed out, the beautiful girl in the lead was Lin Jia. Lin Jia couldn't help but scream when she saw Liu's appearance clearly. This place, Liu glanced at Lin Jia expressionlessly, pointed at the white banners hanging high in the air, and asked Lin Jia, what happened here? This place, Lin Jia's face turned pale, and she knelt on the ground with a plop. This disciple did not do a good job. Please forgive me, Celestial Venerable. So, something really happened? Liu took a deep breath, and his face turned cold. Book Group 419,574,189. Chapter 55. Take me in. Liu waved at Lin Jia and walked into the yard. Yes. Lin Jia hurriedly got up and led Liu into the back hall. There was a mourning hall in the back hall. A black coffin was placed in the mourning hall. Dressed in mourning clothes, little Ting Ting knelt down in the mourning hall, sobbing. She picked up paper money and threw it into the brazier in front of her. The cultivators of the Mist Cave Heaven stood aside with bitter faces and sighed. It's over. It's over. Why would something like this happen? An old man cried and lamented. I failed the task given to me by the Celestial Venerable. Does the heavens really want to destroy my Hei's lineage? If the Celestial Venerable comes back, how can I explain it? I'm already here. Liu appeared in front of the mourning hall and looked coldly at the crowd. What's going on? Celestial Venerable? When the cultivators of Mist Cave Heaven saw Liu, their faces turned pale and they knelt on the ground. Celestial Venerable, please forgive us. Celestial Venerable, please forgive us. Big brother. Little Ting Ting looked up and saw Liu. Tears rolled down her face. She ran over and hugged Liu. Big brother, Grandpa. Grandpa is dead. Little Ting Ting, be good. Don't cry. Don't cry. Liu bent down and picked up the little girl. He turned to the people of Mist Cave Heaven who were kowtowing and apologizing. What's going on? Celestial Venerable. The elder of Mist Cave Heaven looked at Liu with a bitter face. Celestial Venerable, I didn't do my job well and deserve to die. It's just that this is really an unexpected disaster. Celestial Venerable, since your order, I've been waiting in the mansion with my disciple, Lin Jia, to protect the Jiang family at all times. These days have been very normal. Old Master Jiang's hotel and have reopened. The day before yesterday, Old Master Jiang went to the hotel to deal with some matters, but unexpectedly. Speaking of this, the old man's expression was miserable. Unexpectedly, there was a battle between two cultivators the day before yesterday. The two of them chased each other all the way to the sky above the small town. When I saw this, I hurriedly went forward to stop them, but I was still a step too late. When the two of them were fighting, one of their spirit weapons shattered and smashed into the restaurant. Old man Jiang happened to be in the restaurant, so I didn't even have the time to save him. In a fit of anger, I killed the two cultivators who were fighting. However, it was already too late to reverse the situation. This lowly one has let down Empyrean's life and deserves 10,000 deaths for my crime. It's actually like this. When Liu heard this, he was instantly dumbfounded. Old man Jiang died, just like that? Why did he die in such a baffling manner? This was simply, the affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. Life is full of surprises. This was a real world. Anything could happen. Not everything was set in stone. The accident that happened to old man Jiang was shocking. However, in this world where cultivators ran amok, there were always cultivators who would start a fight at the slightest disagreement. It was not uncommon for people to be accidentally injured. Old man Jiang was definitely not the first, nor would he be the last. The only difference was that this person was familiar with Liu. That was all. Liu already did not know what to say. Liu lowered his head and looked at the crying little Ting Ting. Seeing this heartbroken little girl, Liu couldn't help but feel a bit of compassion. Little Ting Ting, what should we do? Liu reached out to wipe away the tears on little Ting Ting's face and gently hugged her in his arms. He really could not bear to let this 5 to 6-year-old little girl live alone in this small town. System, can I bring people back with me? Liu asked the system. The user can bring any item or living being back. However, according to the energy level of the item or living being, the energy consumption will be different. Can I bring them back? Liu nodded. Although little Ting Ting had a tiny body, she did not cultivate. She was just an ordinary person, so would not consume much energy. Moreover, consuming a little energy was much better than letting this lonely little girl live alone in this world. Little Ting Ting, are you willing to go with Big Brother? Liu lowered his head to look at the little girl curled up in his arms and asked softly. Yes. Little Ting Ting nodded. Big Brother, little Ting Ting is very obedient. I will comb your hair every day. Good. Liu smiled and nodded. He raised his eyes to look at the cultivators of the mist grotto heaven. This was really an accident. You can't be blamed for it. Since you have taken care of old man Jiang's funeral, this matter will end here. Thank you for your magnanimity, celestial venerable. Seeing that Liu did not vent his anger on them, the cultivators of the mist grotto heaven heaved a sigh of relief. Next, Liu and the others took care of old man Jiang's funeral. No one cared about worldly possessions such as family wealth, so they dealt with it casually. Little Ting Ting, come with Big Brother. After everything was settled, Liu pulled little Ting Ting out of the courtyard. With a flash of light, Liu brought Xiao Ting Ting and soared into the sky. This little girl is really lucky. The cultivators of the mist grotto heaven looked up at the soaring light with envy. No matter how pitiful her background was, she was extremely lucky to be able to follow a celestial venerable. The light whistled through the sky. After a while, Liu and little Ting Ting appeared in front of the main hall under the volcano. Big Brother, is this your home? Little Ting Ting stretched her head and looked around. She was very curious about this hall. Oh no. Liu shook his head and looked at little Ting Ting with a smile. My home is still far away. Do you want to go back with me? Yes. Little Ting Ting nodded and a smile appeared on her face. Well, then let's go home. Liu held little Ting Ting's hand and walked into the main hall. He looked around and smiled. It's only been a few months since I came to this world, but everything has changed dramatically. Before I came, I was still weak, but now I'm far above everyone else. Before I came, I was still alone, but now... Liu looked down at little Ting Ting beside him, and a bright smile appeared on his face. System return. System notification. Please return items containing powerful energy to the resource warehouse. Otherwise, a large amount of energy will be consumed during the transmission. Oh, I really forgot about that. Liu smiled and shook his head. There was not much energy left in the system, and he had to bring little Ting Ting along. Naturally, he could not waste it. Okay, Liu sighed helplessly. Little Ting Ting, Big Brother will change his clothes before we go. He took off his golden crown, white robe, jade belt, soul-shaking bell, and changed his boots. Now, Liu had returned to the green-robed appearance he had when he first arrived. The only difference was he was no longer alone. Then let's return. An invisible wave trembled slightly, and Liu and little Ting Ting disappeared in an instant. P.S. Book Group 419,574,189. Chapter 56. You're back already? A faint light flashed, and Liu's figure appeared, holding a little girl's hand behind him. Looking up at the familiar dormitory, Liu felt like he was in a dream. He inexplicably transmigrated to this world, and then inexplicably became a system supplier, selling systems all over the universe, playing the role of an expert. In just a few months, he felt that the changes were too big and too fast. Brother, is this your home? Little Ting Ting looked curiously at the dormitory in front of her, and turned to ask Liu. Dear, Liu glanced around the dormitory and shook his head slightly. This is also not Brother's home. Then where is Brother's home? Little Ting Ting blinked her eyes, as if she was surprised. Brother's home. Hearing this question, Liu's heart flashed with a trace of sadness. My home. I don't know if I'll have the chance to go back in this life. My home is where my heart is at ease. Since I'm here, I'll make the best of it. Now is not the time to be emotional. Liu shook his head, held little Ting Ting's hand, and sat down in the dormitory. The most important thing now is to find a place to settle down. Liu looked at little Ting Ting and made up his mind. It's not suitable for little Ting Ting to show her face for the time being. I have to find a suitable reason first. Therefore, I need a safe place to settle little Ting Ting down. System, after the store space is opened, can I bring people in? After the store space is opened, it will be completely under the user's control. The user can give anyone the right to enter and exit at will. Is that so? Liu nodded. He planned to open up the store space and let little Ting Ting stay there for a few days. System, using the floating island's terrain as a model, open up the store space. Order received, store space opening. Boom! Vaguely, Liu seemed to hear an earth-shattering sound, but when he listened carefully, there was no sound at all. After this loud sound, a star appeared in Liu's mind. A bright light bloomed on the star, as if it was the dawn that pierced through the darkness, dazzling the eyes. A strange connection was born in Liu's mind. Following this connection, Liu's mind moved, and his consciousness instantly reached the star. This is the mall space. When his consciousness landed on the star, a space formed by 9 floating islands instantly appeared in Liu's mind. 9 floating islands were suspended in the air. A waterfall flowed down like a waterfall, flowing around the 9 floating islands. Celestial clouds swirled around. Beautiful trees grew verdant, and the 9 floating islands were magnificent, like a paradise. Liu's consciousness flowed through the entire space. It was as if he had carved a mark into it. This space was now marked with Liu's mark. In the blink of an eye, the entire space was under his control. Liu immediately knew how to control this space. The space has been opened. We can go in and take a look. Seeing this space, Liu was very satisfied. He turned to little Ting Ting, who was sitting next to him, and said with a smile, Little Ting Ting, Big Brother will take you to a very beautiful place to play. Do you want to come? Little Ting Ting nodded and said seriously, I'll go wherever Big Brother goes. Then let's go. Liu reached out and pulled little Ting Ting's hand. He secretly said in his mind, in the name of the system's supplier, in the name of the mall space's controller, I grant the person in front of me the authority to enter the mall space. Order received. Authority input complete. Enter the mall space. Liu moved his mind and brought little Tingting into the mall space. Wow, it's so beautiful. Little Tingting looked at the celestial clouds swirling around, the waterfall flowing around, the verdant forest, and the plains blooming with flowers. She immediately cried out in surprise. Letting go of Li Yu's hand, little Tingting bounced around the flowers. Her hands kept plucking flowers, smiling very happily. This was the main island of the 9 floating islands. It was also the largest floating island at the top. The floating island had a radius of about 4 kilometers. It wasn't very big, but there were mountains, rivers, forests, and springs. The environment was very beautiful. The environment is not bad. Liu looked around and secretly nodded. However, this is only a piece of wilderness. If I want people to live here, I still need to start the construction of the mall. System, with my current resources, start the construction of the mall. User, please choose the mall's architectural template or a custom template. The system showed various architectural templates in Liu's mind. There were shrines, sacred halls, demon palaces, immortal mansions, and dozens of different architectural templates. Choose the Immortal Mansion template. Looking at these architectural templates, Liu felt that the Immortal Mansion template was more in line with his aesthetic standards. As for the custom template, Liu knew that he didn't know anything about architectural design. Instead of making something that didn't look like anything, he might as well use the ready-made one. Template confirmed. User, please add architectural resources. Architectural resources? Using the bronze Immortal Palace as the main building resource and the 5-color Divine Jade Palace in the Tomb of the Qing Di as the decorative resource. First, build the Immortal Mansion main building. Resources confirmed. Meets construction standards. Beginning construction of the main building of the System Mall. The bronze Immortal Palace and 5-color Divine Jade Palace in the resource warehouse instantly disintegrated. Then, in Liu's mind, an exquisite building with heavy eaves and hanging arches appeared. The construction of the main building of the System Mall is completed. User, please specify the construction location. Construction location? Liu raised his head and looked around. Then, he smiled and shook his head. The main building of the mall was about 1 square kilometer. What else was there to choose? Little Tingting, come here for a moment. Liu waved at little Tingting, who was happily picking wildflowers, and called her back. He was going to build an immortal mansion later. In order to avoid any accidents, it was better to bring little Tingting with him. Hey, I'm coming. I'm coming. Little Tingting answered. Holding a bouquet of bright flowers, she skipped over. Big brother, look, I picked so many beautiful flowers. So beautiful. Liu smiled and nodded. Then, he pulled little Tingting to his side. Tingting, didn't you ask where Big Brother's home is? This is Big Brother's home. Big Brother will build a beautiful big house here. We'll live here in the future. Okay? Okay. Okay. That's great. Little Tingting jumped up in joy. Okay. Then just watch. Big Brother will build a big house for you. Liu smiled and pointed. Choose the center of the floating island and begin construction. A slight buzzing sound was heard. Then, endless light bloomed in the center of the floating island. Amidst the colorful light, a beautiful building complex rose from the ground. Palaces and pavilions covered each other. Waterside pavilions and terraces intersected with each other. Long corridors extended and decorated with gardens. It was a magnificent sight. Big Brother, this is our home? Little Tingting stared at the building in front of her, dumbfounded. She blinked her eyes in disbelief. This is our home. Liu smiled and pulled little Tingting toward the entrance of the Immortal Mansion. Chapter 57. Holding little Tingting's hand, he walked around the newly built immortal abode. Liu was very satisfied with this building. Little Tingting frowned because she felt that the house was too big. The immortal abode was beautifully constructed, and all kinds of functional buildings were also very complete. The only drawback was that the house was still empty, and the garden was just some ordinary plants. But this was not a problem. In the colorful hall of the Azure Thearcha's tomb, there were all kinds of daily items. System, Take out all the daily items in the Azure Thearchus tomb and place them in the immortal abode. With a light wave of his hand, all kinds of tools instantly appeared in the empty room. Embroidered curtains in front of the windows, long velvet carpets on the floor, exquisite tables, sparkling jade wares, all kinds of tools appeared in every room. Wow, there are actually so many resources in the Azure Thearchus tomb, Liu exclaimed. With these things, the immortal abode could be lived in. Little Tingting wouldn't have any problems living here. Little Tingting, Big Brother will give you some fun things. Liu waved his hand and threw out a pile of toys, all kinds of plush bears, all kinds of dolls, and piled them up. Wow, so cute. Little Tingting cheered and squeezed into the pile of toys. Tingting, play at home for a while. Big Brother has something to do and has to go out for a while. I'll be back soon. Okay, Big Brother. Tingting is very obedient. Little Tingting hugged a white bear toy and waved at Liu. Liu smiled and turned to leave the room. Little Tingting has settled down for now. Now I have to deal with my own matters. After transmigrating to this world, Liu was taken in by Steward Ian and settled down in Kangwu Academy. Although he had not been registered, he was still a servant. In this kind of situation, Liu's aspirations were already very high. How could he still work as an odd-job worker for others? Therefore, the problem of his identity had to be solved immediately. With a thought, Liu planned to leave the immortal abode. This is... Just as he was about to teleport out, Liu suddenly realized that there were many places he could teleport to. After living in this world for a few months, any place that Liu had been to could be used as a teleportation point. You can actually do this? Liu was pleasantly surprised. According to this situation, as long as he had been to a place before, he would be able to reach it. Wasn't this similar to stepping on a teleportation point in some games? As long as he took the time to make a trip in the future, he wouldn't have to walk anywhere in the future. Teleport. Liu chose a foothold and instantly left the mall. In the blink of an eye, Liu's figure appeared in the dormitory of the chores yard. Although the dormitory in the chores yard was simple, it was still a single dormitory. Before the teleportation, Liu had already confirmed through the system that there were no outsiders in the dormitory, so he was not afraid of being seen. The moonlight outside the window was like water. Looking at the moonlight, Liu thought of a very important question. That was time. In the previous world, he had spent a few months pretending to be Grand Supreme Tao Ancestor to deceive the Zhou Yi. Now that he had returned, how would this time be calculated? How much time had passed? System, from the time I left to the time I returned, how much time had passed in this world? A total of 6 hours and 2 quarters, 6 hours and 30 minutes. 6 hours? 1 month is equivalent to 2 hours. According to this ratio, 24 hours is 12 months. A day in heaven is a year on earth. Coming up with this very familiar ratio, Liu chuckled, looked at the moonlight outside the window, and thought, when I left, it was afternoon, and after 6 hours, it is already night. After transmigrating to this world, he became a system supplier and went to another world to sell the system. What happened during this period of time made Liu feel a bit unreal, as if he was dreaming. Moving his hands and feet, feeling the majestic power in his body, Liu couldn't help but laugh. After going out for a stroll, he gained a top-notch physique, obtained countless resources, and even brought back a little lowly. The harvest of this trip was really too rich. When I was building the immortal residence, just now, I actually forgot to deal with these things. Looking at the Bodhi seed, the immortal sword Heavenly Lake, and the teal lotus emperor weapon, Liu suddenly remembered that the system had said that these things were environmental resources. When he was building the immortal residence just now, he forgot to deal with them together. I really need to change my habit of doing things without a plan and acting on whatever I think of. Liu smiled bitterly and shook his head. Ever since I got the teal lotus emperor weapon, I haven't even touched it. Since I didn't deal with it, let's take it out and see. Thinking of this, Liu waved his hand and took out the teal lotus emperor weapon. Indeed, it is. Looking at the sparkling and translucent teal lotus in his hand, Liu was full of praise. However, the system's sudden sharp alarm interrupted Liu's mood of admiring the teal lotus emperor weapon. Warning! Warning: if an item of too high energy level appears in this world, it will cause interference from the power of the world. Huh? Interference from the power of the world? What does that mean? Liu was stunned. He lowered his head and looked at the teal Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand. He was confused. It was understandable that the energy level was too high. After all, it was an Emperor weapon that could destroy heaven and earth. Its energy level must be high. But what was interference from the power of the world? How did it interfere? The system gave him the answer immediately. According to the user's understanding, the interference from the power of the world can be called heavenly tribulation. What the hell? Heavenly tribulation? Liu trembled. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He quickly ran out of the room and looked up at the sky. Boom! Thunder rumbled and pitch-black clouds gathered in an instant, covering the moon and the starry sky. In an instant, the entire sky was as dark as ink. There was no light at all. Only the thunder rumbled and the occasional flash of lightning could be seen. What the hell? I'm in big trouble now. Liu's face turned pale. He quickly asked the system, if I keep the teal Lotus Emperor weapon now, will the heavenly tribulation disappear? If I return to the store, will I be able to avoid the heavenly tribulation? Warning: the heavenly tribulation has locked onto the target. Keeping the Emperor weapon will not remove the heavenly tribulation. Warning: when a user enters the store, it will cause the power of the world to attack the store, causing the store to be destroyed. That means I can't avoid the heavenly tribulation this time. Liu looked up at the lightning in the sky. Looking at the heavenly tribulation that was gathering, he gritted his teeth. Isn't it just a heavenly tribulation? The heavenly tribulation caused by the Emperor weapon must only target the power of the Emperor weapon. I don't believe I can't survive it. With the immortal mansion built from the immortal grade bronze immortal palace and the immortal grade invisible immortal fire in the fire domain, Liu is very confident. Warning: when a user uses immortal grade power, it will cause the heavenly tribulation to increase in strength. Damn, Liu's face fell. Am I going to be struck by lightning if I pretend to be real? Chapter 58. Hurry up and leave this place. Liu hurriedly drew out a strand of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon's power and took a step forward, traversing thousands of mountains and rivers. He arrived at a mountain range 1,000 miles away from the Kangwu Academy. Of course, I have to find a place where no one is around. Liu turned his head and looked around before nodding his head secretly. He definitely couldn't undergo the tribulation in the Kangwu Academy, although he didn't know what the rules of this world's tribulation were. What if it was similar to the tribulation in the previous world? The consequences of Liu undergoing the tribulation in the Kangwu Academy would definitely be death and injury. A certain someone in the previous world loved to play this trick on his enemies. Every time he used this trick, the land would be littered with corpses. If the tribulation in this world was similar to the one in the previous world, then if Liu went to the Kangwu Academy to undergo the tribulation, the entire Kangwu Academy would probably be flattened by the Emperor weapon level tribulation, right? Manager Yin and Yin Luo wouldn't be spared either, right? Therefore, Liu definitely had to leave the Kangwu Academy. After finding a suitable place, Liu began to make preparations. The tribulation above his head was still brewing. Amidst the rolling lightning, an enormous aura suppressed the heavens and the earth. Damn it, I was careless, and I actually caused such a huge problem. I'm afraid I'll have to pay for it this time. Liu cursed in his heart and hurriedly changed into all his equipment. He put on the Saint-grade white robe again. Although the white robe, which was essentially made from the scales of the alligator ancestor, was probably not much stronger than a piece of paper under the Emperor weapon level tribulation. However, at this moment, every bit of strength he could gain counted. Liu couldn't care less. He held the Soul Buster Bell in his hand and glanced at it before throwing it back in. Although it was extremely powerful, it was also very targeted. It was only effective against the soul and was completely useless against the tribulation. The dozen or so Saint-grade equipment in the Azure Thearch's tomb were all offensive weapons. None of them were defensive, so they were completely useless. After hurriedly changing his equipment, Liu looked down at the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand and clenched his fist tightly. Azure Lotus, you're the Emperor's true form. The Azure the Arch has dominated the world all his life. I'm sure you're not inferior. Boom, rumble. The sound of thunder in the sky became louder and louder. The heavy sound of thunder contained endless power, as if everything in the world was trembling under this sound of thunder. At this time, everyone in the world noticed this unusual phenomenon. People from different races, different countries, and different forces were all very concerned about this sudden phenomenon. In the various cultivation holy lands, countless people craned their necks and looked up at the sky. Their expressions were both shocked and envious. Heaven's might is awe-inspiring, and all living things submit. The lightning was like an ocean, and the will of heaven was like a blade, which great Grandmaster ascended to the supreme realm. An old man in a Confucian robe looked up at the sky with some surprise on his face. The heavenly lightning hasn't struck yet, so we can't tell where the person is. Hopefully, it wasn't a variant demon. Otherwise, the human race will be in an even more difficult situation. The old man heaved a long sigh and looked up at the sky without saying anything for a long time. Supreme tribulation? Someone else ascended to the supreme Grandmaster realm? In a shabby Taoist temple, a sloppy old Taoist grabbed a chicken leg and gnawed on it. He stretched out his oily hand and wiped it on his clothes a few times before grabbing a wine gourd and taking a big gulp. I hope it's not a variant demon. Otherwise, this old Taoist will have to go back and join forces with Old Sour to stabilize the situation. It's actually a supreme tribulation. Buddha is merciful. A skinny old monk opened his turbid eyes in the Buddhist hall that was filled with incense. I didn't expect that a supreme grandmaster would ascend to the Tao today. The old monk looked up at the sky. There was no sadness or joy on his miserable face, but the bitterness seemed to be a little heavier. A supreme grandmaster is actually going through a tribulation. In a magnificent hall, a middle-aged man in an imperial robe looked up at the sky. In his demonic purple eyes, colorful halos flowed rapidly, and monstrous demonic chi shook the surroundings. Boom! Rumble. Thunder rumbled and lightning flashed. After a period of preparation, the heavenly tribulation had accumulated enough energy and was about to descend. It's about to come? Liu looked up at the tribulation lightning gathering in the sky and took a deep breath. He raised the green Lotus Emperor weapon in front of him. Green Lotus. Let us witness the heavenly tribulation of this world. A dazzling spiritual light shot into the sky. Liu rushed into the sky with the green Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand. Green Lotus, you followed the Lotus Emperor to conquer the world, but you've never fought against the heavenly tribulation of this world. Today, let's use this battle to announce your arrival to this world. Ding! A clear and melodious sound rang out, and a dazzling radiance bloomed. The green lotus in his hand floated up and released endless radiance. In the blink of an eye, the green Lotus Emperor weapon transformed into a huge lotus that reached the heavens. A lotus in the blue sea and clear sky. At this moment, the peerless weapon from another world displayed its peerless elegance as it stood proudly between heaven and earth, announcing its arrival to the world. This is a green lotus? The old Confucian scholar frowned. The aura is so unfamiliar. Who is this person? That direction. Kangwu Academy? Could this person be a member of our Confucian sect? Who in the Confucian sect has attained the Tao through lotus? The old Confucian scholar pondered, but inwardly heaved a sigh of relief. A green lotus with extraordinary Tao. Is this a member of our Taoism? But why would he appear in Kangwu Academy, a place of Confucianism? The sloppy Taoist priest took a swig of wine, shook his head, and exhaled. Forget it. Forget it. As long as he's a human. Merciful Buddha, when he saw the green lotus blotting out the sky, the old monk's bitter expression became even more bitter. A green lotus? It seems to carry a trace of our heavenly Yao's aura. But Why would it appear in Kangwu Mountain? In the Grand Hall, the Yao Emperor frowned and remained silent for a long time. Boom! The heavenly tribulation that had been brewing for a long time finally arrived. With an earth-shattering boom, a dazzling bolt of lightning shot up and crashed down on Liu. Is it coming? When he heard the thunder and saw the lightning, Liu's heart tightened. He shouted, "Rise!" As soon as he finished speaking, the huge lotus flower shook violently. The petals instantly closed and tightly wrapped around Liu, who was standing in the middle of the stamen. The huge green lotus flower turned into a flower bud. Boom! An earth-shattering boom rang out. Lightning crashed down, carrying with it the might of heaven and earth and the power to destroy everything as it slammed into the green lotus. The sound was deafening, shaking heaven and earth. It was as if the earth itself had been uprooted. Boom! Sitting in the lotus core, Liu felt his surroundings shake violently. It was as if the world had been turned upside down and the earth was shaking. Damn it! The heavenly tribulation, is this powerful? If this continues, even if the green lotus imperial weapon can withstand it, the tremors will kill me. Chapter 59. Luckily, I still have the elixir of immortality and the divine spring. Liu looked at the elixir of immortality and the divine spring in the storehouse and heaved a sigh of relief. With these things, I should be able to get through it, right? Boom! A huge explosion sounded again as if heaven and earth were falling apart. The entire world trembled from the explosion. Everything in the world went silent at this moment. Someone is transcending the tribulation, and he's transcending the tribulation near our Green Parasol Mountain. Everyone in Green Parasol Academy was alarmed, and many students ran out of their rooms while shouting. They looked up at the sky, at the huge green lotus that stood proudly in the sky, and at the monstrous thunderstorm that descended from the sky. The group of students shouted excitedly, "Supreme Tribulation! This is a supreme tribulation!" In Green Parasol Academy, a few old scholars stood on the rooftop and looked into the distance with shock in their hearts. Which great Grandmaster has ascended to the realm of Supreme Grandmaster? That green lotus is very unfamiliar. Have you heard of anyone who achieved the Tao with a green lotus? The mountain elder of Green Parasol Academy, Old Man Qin Miu, frowned in thought as he turned to ask the others around him. Never heard of it. Everyone shook their heads. Who is this person? Why is he transcending the tribulation near our Green Parasol Mountain? Could it be related to our Green Parasol Mountain? Which great Grandmaster of the Academy has broken through to the realm of Supreme Grandmaster? Mountain Elder Qin Muyu stroked his beard and frowned in thought, but he couldn't figure it out at all. This person must have a close relationship with our Green Parasol Academy. It's a pity that I can't meet such an expert in front of me. What a pity. Qin Muyu sighed, but there was a hint of anticipation in his words. As one of the 10 great Confucian sacred grounds, Green Parasol Academy had produced countless grandmasters and great-grandmasters. However, until now, no one had attained the realm of Supreme Grandmaster. As the mountain elder of Green Parasol Academy, Qin Miyu had heard countless rumors slandering Green Parasol Academy. He had heard countless rumors about how there were no Supreme Grandmasters and how the sacred grounds of Confucianism didn't live up to their name. Qin Muyu wanted to argue, but he couldn't. He could only grit his teeth and swallow his anger. However, the current situation gave birth to some hope in Qin Muyu's heart. Since this person was undergoing the tribulation near Kangwu Academy, he definitely had a deep relationship with Kangwu Academy. How important was a cultivator's tribulation? How could he be careless? The location of the tribulation had to be carefully selected to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Who would dare to go to someone else's territory to transcend the tribulation? What if someone was itching to attack and couldn't resist the urge to attack? Then it might be a disaster of death. Therefore, he had chosen to transcend the tribulation in Dark Parasol because he was certain that no one in Dark Parasol would attack him. Only someone from Dark Parasol could be so confident. Yes, This person must have a close relationship with my dark parasol sect. Everyone on the rooftop nodded in agreement. If Liu knew what the members of Kangwu Academy were thinking, then he would definitely burst into laughter. Unfortunately, he couldn't hear it. Moreover, even if he heard it, he wouldn't be able to laugh. The second bolt of lightning struck down, causing the green Lotus Emperor weapon to tremble violently. The radiance on the green lotus petal dimmed significantly. Liu, who was in the middle of the lotus stamen, was directly shaken by this huge impact and spat out blood. Damn it, the heavenly tribulation is so powerful. He took out the divine spring and gulped down a mouthful. The rich vitality quickly healed the damage to his body. I can't go on like this. Liu furrowed his brows tightly. The current situation wasn't optimistic at all. With the system in hand, the power Liu could use was beyond imagination. It wasn't impossible for him to destroy the heavens and earth, but his own strength was still too weak. After exchanging for the innate Saint Body Tao fetus and the infinite scripture, Liu had already laid a solid foundation. However, Liu's cultivation time was still too short. A sea of rebirth realm cultivation was no different from an ant in front of a heavenly tribulation at the level of an emperor weapon. I can't just sit here and wait for death. If this continues, the green Lotus Emperor weapon won't be able to hold out for long. After all, this is a heavenly tribulation targeting an emperor weapon. Liu frowned. All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind, but he couldn't think of a suitable countermeasure. It wasn't that Liu didn't have any trump cards. The immortal grade bronze immortal palace transformed into an immortal grade immortal residence, and the immortal grade invisible immortal fire. These were all things that Liu could use, and they were far more powerful than a supreme emperor. But he didn't dare to use them. The system had already warned him. Once he used the immortal grade power, the heavenly tribulation would be upgraded immediately. What was the concept of an immortal grade heavenly tribulation? The aftermath could shatter Liu directly. How could he go through a heavenly tribulation? I have to fight back. There will definitely be problems if I just defend. Liu took a deep breath and glanced at the heart of the demon god in the resource warehouse. He felt more confident. The heart of the demon god and the green Lotus Emperor weapon are originally one. Their powers must be very compatible. With the power of the heart of the demon god and the green Lotus Emperor weapon, it's not like I can't fight back. If that's the case, then let's fight. With a thought, the closed green lotus bloomed instantly. On the huge lotus pistol, Liu, who was dressed in white, stood in the wind. He faced the roaring thunder above him and raised his arms slightly. Bang! 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 The heart of the demon god was beating rapidly, and majestic power was channeled into the green Lotus Emperor weapon. Azure sea, clear sky, a lotus. Liu roared to the sky. He raised his right arm and slashed at the rolling tribulation clouds in the sky. Boom! A beam of light that penetrated the heavens crashed into the rolling tribulation clouds in the sky, like a pillar supporting the sky. A loud sound shook heaven and earth. This attack pierced through the tribulation clouds and created a huge hole in the dark clouds. Bright moonlight shone through the hole and lit up heaven and earth again. What a straightforward character. Everyone who saw this scene couldn't help but praise in their hearts. In the face of the heavenly tribulation, he didn't have the slightest fear. Instead, he fought back and attacked the heavenly tribulation directly. Such a person must be strong and upright. He would rather break than bend. However, Liu couldn't voice out his bitterness. This attack seemed to be extremely ferocious and powerful. However, it didn't cause much damage to the tribulation clouds. The clouds quickly gathered again, and the hole was closed. The moonlight covered the sky, and the entire world fell into darkness again. Warning! Warning! When a user uses his power, please try to conform to the rules of this world. The rules of this world? What are the rules? Liu roared at the system. Please refer to the rules of this world to deal with the heavenly tribulation. The more power you expose from the other world, the more serious the interference from the world will be. How would I know what the rules of this heavenly tribulation are? Li was frustrated. Boom! The lightning gathered again, and the third tribulation lightning was about to strike. Ignoring the system's warning, Liu continued to extract the heart of the demon god to drive the Green Lotus Emperor weapon. This isn't right. This isn't right. The heart of the demon god is the energy source of the Lotus Emperor's body. Why is it so weak when combined with the Green Lotus Emperor weapon? Liu furrowed his brows tightly. The power that exploded just now seemed to be huge. In fact, Liu knew that the true power of the Green Lotus Emperor weapon had yet to be displayed. If I can't fully utilize the power of the heart of the demon god and the Green Lotus Emperor weapon, I definitely won't be able to survive this heavenly tribulation. What's the problem? After thinking for a while, Liu understood the reason. The world was no longer the same. The Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god were definitely not as compatible as before. Compatible? A thought suddenly flashed through Liu's mind. The system also reminded me to conform to the rules just now. Could that be the rules? Chapter 60. Manager Ian once said that a grandmaster must explain his Tao to heaven and earth before proving his Tao. Liu looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. The heavenly tribulation this time is caused by the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon. It's the rejection of this world towards foreign objects. However, if the Tao I explain matches the power of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and matches the rules of this world, will the heavenly tribulation turn into a Tao proving tribulation? Even if it doesn't, the process of using the power can also match the rules of this world. Perhaps this method can truly unleash the power of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god. Thinking of this, Liu made up his mind. Regardless of whether it would work or not, it was better than waiting for death. Boom! Rumble. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and a monstrous power shook the world. Facing the rumbling thunder, Liu stood with his head held high and recited a magnificent poem. The flowers of water and land, the lovable ones are kept. The people of Jin love the chrysanthemum. The people of Tang love the peony. They love the lotus that grows from a mud without being stained. They are clear and rippling without being demonic. They are straight from the middle without being overgrown. They are fragrant and clear. They can be admired from afar and cannot be touched. The chrysanthemum is the recluse of flowers. The peony is the richness of flowers. The lotus is the gentleman of flowers. The love of the chrysanthemum is rarely heard of today. The love of the lotus, who is it? The love of the peony is suitable for everyone. This was Love Lotus after Liu revised Love Lotus. This world also had the Jin Nation and the Tang Nation. The Kangwu Academy that Liu was in belonged to the Chu Nation. The Chu Nation had many lakes and lotuses everywhere. This slightly modified love of the lotus was also in line with the reality of this world. At the beginning, Liu's recitation of the love of the lotus was completely covered by the thunder and couldn't be heard. When Liu recited it for the second time, the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon suddenly emitted a brilliant light. The heart of the demon god in the resource warehouse suddenly throbbed violently. Liu's heart stirred, and he hurriedly took out the heart of the demon god. As soon as he took it out, the heart of the demon god flew out of his hand and landed in the lotus stamen of the Green Lotus the arch weapon. Clang! A booming sound like a great bell resounded in the sky, and an endless brilliance suddenly bloomed. Water, land, grass, and flowers. Amidst the brilliant light, Liu's recitation of the ode to the beloved lotus underwent a wonderful change. As Liu chanted, the Green Lotus, the arch weapon, and the heart of the demon, the arch vibrated as if they were resonating. This article, praising the pure and upright nature of the lotus, seemed to have touched the hearts of the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the Demon Emperor. Under Liu's chanting, the two resonated and erupted with an earth-shattering power. A ray of brilliant white light shot up from the stamen like a pillar that supported the heavens, standing between the heavens and the earth. Boom! The heavenly thunder struck again. The green lotus, the arch weapon, and the heart of the demon, the arch resonated and erupted with a tyrannical power. When the heavenly thunder struck, the pillar of light remained motionless and didn't have any effect. Li was slightly stunned. Even if it explodes with all its power, it shouldn't be this strong, right? It seems like the power of the heavenly tribulation has weakened. System notification. The article that the user is reciting conforms to the rules of this world. The heavenly tribulation has changed from the tribulation of wiping out foreign objects to the tribulation of proving the Tao in this world. It is indeed effective. Hearing the system notification, Liu was overjoyed. He didn't expect that the desperate attempt just now would actually be effective. Out of the mud, unstained, with this unexpected surprise, Liu put in more effort in his recitation. As Liu recited, the green lotus emperor weapon and the heart of the demon, the arch resonated even more. The brilliant brilliance of the pillar of light lit up the entire sky. Even though the sky was covered by dark clouds, even though the sky was filled with thunder and lightning, and the light pillar was still standing tall and strong, the bright and clear light was still shining with persistence and determination. Pure and upright, fearless and unyielding. Boom, boom, boom. The heavenly lightning struck again and again, and the thunderstorm that covered the sky and earth came crashing down. It seemed like it wanted to crush the pillar of light and annihilate the brilliance that was recklessly blooming. However, no matter how the thunderstorm raged, the pillar of light still stood strong. Noble character, upright and plain-spoken. Very good, very good. Seeing the pillar of light that stood strong in the thunderstorm, the Confucian-robed old man who had been paying attention to this tribulation nodded and praised. The brilliance just now shone brightly and illuminated the world. It seems like this person has already made the oath of proving the Tao. I just don't know if his Tao will be recognized by the heavens and earth, and he will finally become a supreme master. At the same time, the slovenly Taoist priest who was gnawing on a drumstick looked up at the sky. He even forgot to gnaw on the drumstick in his hand. The skinny old monk in the temple hall also looked up at the sky without blinking. He didn't even recite his scripture. The demon arch in the hall held a wine bottle and remained silent. He was waiting for the final moment to arrive. The Kangwu Academy was silent. No one made a sound. They were all looking up at the sky. Everyone knew that the scene of the brilliance just now was because the person undergoing the tribulation had explained his Tao to the heavens and earth and made the oath of proving the Tao. Now, it all depended on whether his oath of proving the Tao would be recognized by the heavens and earth. If he was recognized by the heavens and earth, the next 3 lightning tribulations would be a baptism. If he wasn't recognized by the heavens and earth, the next 3 lightning tribulations would be a death tribulation. At this moment, everyone in the world was paying attention and waiting. If another supreme master appeared in the human race, it would definitely change the situation of the world. With another supreme master overseeing the situation, the other kind demons wouldn't dare to act rashly. To the entire human race, this was a great thing. To the other kind demons, this wasn't a good thing at all. Therefore, Liu's tribulation this time would definitely affect the hearts of billions of people in the world. In the various countries of the Middle Plains, whether it was the human race or the other kind, they were all waiting for the final result. Time slowly passed. The lightning was still rolling. The power of the tribulation lightning didn't increase or decrease. There was no change at all. What's going on? Everyone who was paying attention to this scene had doubts in their hearts. The oath of proving the Tao had been sworn. If the heavens and earth recognized the heavens and earth, the power of the lightning tribulation would plummet. If the heavens and earth didn't recognize the heavens and earth, the power of the lightning tribulation would increase dramatically. They had never seen a lightning tribulation that didn't increase or decrease. Could it be that this person's Tao proving is going to fail? All the humans who were watching this scene clenched their fists tightly, breaking out in cold sweat. The other kind demons, on the other hand, rejoiced in their hearts. The flowers of water, land, and vegetation. Just when everyone was at a loss for what to do, a loud voice echoed between heaven and earth. This was the voice of a recital. The vast recital shook heaven and earth, and the voice reached the 9 heavens. It's done. It's done. It's done. Ha! The heavens bless the human race. This is the sonorous voice of Tao proving. The heavens and earth recognized his Tao, and this is manifested in the world. Quickly write it down. This is the sonorous voice of a supreme master. Quickly write it down. Ha! As expected of someone from our Confucian sect. Good. Hearing this voice, all the human countries in the world were in an uproar. However, the other kind demons were momentarily speechless. Emerging from the mud without being stained, cleansing the water without being demonic. Lotus, the gentleman of flowers. The sonorous voice of Tao, proving still, resounded through the clouds. Chapter 61. Untainted by the Mud? Untainted by the Mud? In the hall, the demon emperor angrily smashed the wine bottle in his hand to the ground and pointed at the radiance in the sky. You bastard! You clearly have the bloodline of a heavenly demon. You are my brother, my clansman. Why do you associate yourself with humans? Is the bloodline of my heavenly demon bloodline mud to you? You bastard! The demon emperor roared furiously. His demonic aura churned like a tsunami, scaring countless fiendish demons into silence. Ha! What a good untainted by the mud. When the Confucian-robed elder heard the sonorous voice, he immediately laughed out loud and could not contain his joy. Originally, I was wondering why there was a hint of demonic aura in this person's aura despite him being a Confucian cultivator. I never expected it to be like this. Having said that, the Confucian-robed elder let out a long sigh. Back then, fiendish demons wreaked havoc in the Central Plains, raping and pillaging. They tainted our human bloodline, causing thousands of babies to be born with impure bloodlines. They were looked down upon and caused countless tragedies. I never expected this person to have such a background. With a mutated bloodline, he was looked down upon and bullied. Yet, he remained noble and upright. In the end, he attained the supreme Tao of a grandmaster. It's truly commendable. Untainted by the mud. Indeed, untainted by the mud. With these words, all those who have suffered the pain of having impure bloodlines will finally be able to live their lives openly. The Confucian-robed elder laughed heartily. The green lotus is the symbol of our Taoism. I never expected this person to be able to comprehend a noble heart and upright nature. He is indeed extraordinary. The slovenly Taoist priest clapped and laughed. The lotus is a gentleman of flowers. He actually allowed him to attain the Tao of a gentleman with the green lotus. Good. This scene is worthy of a toast. The slovenly Taoist priest reached for the wine gourd and poured it into his mouth. There's no more wine? The slovenly Taoist priest's expression froze. He shook his head with a wry smile. Forget it. Sleep. With this person and old sour, the situation in the world is stable. I can also sleep in peace. Buddha is merciful. Such a person is actually a member of the Confucian sect. What a pity. In the temple hall, the skinny old monk sighed slightly, lowered his eyelids, and said no more. Everyone within Kangwu Academy cheered. On the high platform, Mountain Head Sheen and the group of old Confucians were so happy that their faces turned red. After hearing this sonorous voice, I'm sure everyone has no more questions, right? He must be a senior grandmaster of my Kangwu Academy. Mountain Elder is right. That must be it. It must be so. Everyone nodded in agreement. Good. Today, my Dark Parasol Academy's founding Master Green Lotus has attained a supreme realm, and the sonorous voice of the Grand Tao has spread throughout the world. The ancestral master's Tao affirmation was a foregone conclusion. We will make preparations to welcome the return of the patriarch. Yes, we'll do it immediately. Everyone accepted the order and left in high spirits. Once the sonorous voice of the great Tao rang out, the entire world shook. Liu was also shocked. I only pirated an article, and it actually caused such a big commotion? Liu had two motives for reciting the discourse of the beloved lotus. The first was to conform to the laws of this world when transcending the tribulation, and the second was to activate the power of the green lotus emperor weapon and the heart of the shifter emperor god. In fact, he never thought it would have such a good effect. This was actually a stroke of luck, a coincidence. According to the laws of this world, he had to explain his Tao to the heavens and earth. The discourse of the beloved lotus matched the essence of the green lotus emperor weapon and the heart of the shifter emperor god's power, and it also conformed to the laws of this world. There was no such thing as intelligence in the power of the world. As long as it conformed to the laws, it would naturally be included in the laws. The calamity of obliteration became the calamity of Tao attainment. The laws of this world were actually not mysterious. Two metal balls falling at the same time and water flowing downwards, these were the laws of this world. If one insisted on water flowing downwards, it would definitely not conform to the laws of this world, and it would be interfered with by the power of the world. Of course, this interruption did not have to be a heavenly tribulation. It could also directly cripple the ability of water flowing downwards. Liyu's discourse of the beloved lotus conformed to the laws of this world, and it changed from water flowing downwards to water flowing downwards. This way, it would not be interfered with by the power of the world. I'm finally going to make it through. Seeing that the thick thunderclouds above his head had dissipated significantly, Liu heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Boom, boom, boom. The last three lightning tribulations descended. The power of the lightning tribulations was obviously weakened. Under the protection of the green lotus emperor weapon and the heart of the shifter emperor god, he passed through it very easily. Once the 9 lightning tribulations passed, the rolling thunderclouds quickly dissipated. In a moment, the smoke and clouds disappeared, and the bright moon lit up the sky once again. However, the indomitable green lotus bloomed brilliantly, and it shone brightly with a bright moon hanging high in the sky, competing with each other. Ding! Suddenly there was an ethereal sound in the 9 heavens. Multicolored rays of light descended from the sky. Gorgeous flowers floated in the air and sprinkled down from the sky. Seeing the colorful rays of light descending, Liu was shocked. Just as he was about to use the green lotus emperor weapon to block it, the system notification made Liu stop. System notification. This is the reward for proving one's Tao in this world. Bathing in the rays of light will be very beneficial to the user. Is this the reward for transcending the tribulations? Liu chuckled. It seems like this world is still very generous. Therefore, Liu stood still and allowed the rays of light to fall from the sky to cover his entire body. As the rays of light fell, it was like a cool spring cleansing Liu's entire body. In a trance, Liu felt that he was like a mirror that had been covered in dust for a long time. Under the cleansing of this clear spring, all the dust was washed away, and it bloomed with dazzling brilliance once again. System notification. The user has been baptized by the power of heaven and earth in this world. The user's special physique has been accepted by heaven and earth and integrated into the laws of this world. The green lotus emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god have successfully transcended the tribulations. The Tao of the green lotus has been accepted by heaven and earth. The saint-level white robe has been baptized by the power of heaven and earth. I've been accepted by the world after being washed by the rays of light. System, quickly absorb the rays of light. After hearing the system notification, how could Liu not know that this was an excellent opportunity? He quickly instructed the system to collect the rays of light descending from the sky. An invisible wave swept across, and the system kept collecting the colorful rays of light descending from the sky. After a while, the rays of light dissipated. Drop a little more. So stingy. Liu pursed his lips unwillingly when he saw the rays of light dissipating. Fortunately, the system had collected a lot of rays of light, and it was enough for the time being. Roar! At this moment, an earth-shattering dragon roar could be heard from the far east. Roar! A loud tiger roar could be heard from the west. Then, a phoenix roar could be heard from the south, and a dragon roar could be heard from the north. The earth also let out a deep and heavy roar. Liu was taken aback and was somewhat baffled. The holy spirits of the 5 directions roar in unison, and the heavens congratulate you. Congratulations to Grandmaster Green Lotus for achieving the Supreme Tao. Congratulations to Grandmaster Green Lotus for achieving the Supreme Tao. In an instant, the world was shaken. Chapter 62. F***CK. We're in big trouble now. Even though he was still thousands of kilometers away from the Kangwu Academy, Liu could still hear the thunderous cheers coming from the academy. It's the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god that validated my Tao. It's not me at all. What kind of supreme grandmaster am I? Liu shook his head bitterly when he saw the streaks of light shooting out from the direction of the Kangwu Academy. I can't take this anymore. I have to leave. But if I don't leave them with something to remember, I'm afraid this matter won't end. Liu's heart skipped a beat as he turned to look at the cliff behind him. He activated the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and released a beam of light that flattened the entire cliff like a mirror. The Green Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand trembled slightly as he carved the entire text of the Love Lotus that was recognized by the heavens and earth on the cliff. Then, he separated a part of the sonorous voice of the Great Tao from the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and merged it into the text. Liu nodded his head as he looked at the glistening words on the cliff. You should be able to explain yourself now, right? After doing all this, Liu hurriedly left and returned to the shop space in an instant. A moment later, Mountain Head Sheen led a group of old scholars and descended to the bottom of the cliff. Where is he? Where did Ancestor Green Lotus go? Mountain Head Sheen stretched his neck and looked around, but he couldn't see anyone at all. He was still here just a moment ago. Why did he suddenly disappear? Why did Ancestor Green Lotus avoid meeting us? What are we supposed to do? Mountain Head Sheen's face was bitter as he wanted to cry. Mountain Head, Ancestor Green Lotus has just validated his Tao. I'm afraid he needs to go into seclusion for a while to comprehend the great Tao and consolidate his cultivation. An old scholar consoled him. Yes. Mountain Head, look. Another old scholar pointed at the glistening cliff in front of them. Mountain Head, Ancestor didn't abandon us. He even left us his comprehension of the Tao. Yes. Everyone nodded in unison. Yes. Ancestor has just validated his Tao, so he definitely needs to comprehend the great Tao. We were too rash. Fortunately, Ancestral Master didn't take any blame and even left behind some insights. Mountain Chief Qin stroked his beard and nodded. He looked up at the cliff. Looking at the dazzling words and hearing the sonorous voice of the great Tao, Qin Shanzhong was shocked. This is the great Tao mantra? Is this the incantation of the great Tao that was born from the connection between man and heaven when the Patriarch was confirming his Tao? Patriarch has treated us so well. Even such a great Tao mantra was left here. The great Tao incantation is the foundation of a supreme Grandmaster's Tao. The Patriarch had split out a portion of his own foundation to benefit the younger generation. What a great debt of gratitude. Yes. From today onwards, this will be the sacred land of my Kangwu Academy. When the disciples cultivate here, they can bathe in the sound of the great Tao at all times. This is a great benefit. What a great fortune. Founding Ancestors' actions will bring boundless benefits to the disciples of my Kangwu Academy for generations to come. Seeing the scenery of the cliff, everyone was extremely excited and moved. Patriarch is so kind. We thank the Patriarch for his great kindness on behalf of the younger generation. Mountain Head Sheen led the group of old Confucian scholars and respectfully kowtowed to the cliff. Liu didn't know that his casual actions would cause such a great impact. He returned to the shopping mall. Liu glanced at little Ting, who was rolling around in the pile of dolls, and smiled. He didn't disturb her. Let's continue with the construction. Only the main building of the shopping mall had been completed. There were still many things that hadn't been completed. Liu planned to take advantage of this opportunity to finish them all. Liu walked to the garden in the immortal estate and took out the Bodhi seed. System, how do I plant this? Liu still attached great importance to the enlightenment Bodhi tree. If he could plant the Bodhi seed and grow a Bodhi tree, it would be a lifelong benefit to Liu. User, please specify the location to plant it. Location to plant it. Liu raised his head and glanced around. He chose a small hill in the garden. Liu walked to the side of the hill. Looking at the flowing stream and a quaint pavilion at the foot of the hill, Liu nodded. Location selected. Plant it. Following Liu's command, the Bodhi seed in his hand flew up and landed on the hill. Wong. With a slight vibration, a huge gust of wind rushed into the place where the Bodhi seed was planted. Within this gust of wind, there was a grayish chaotic aura, black and white yin and yang aura, as well as a thick and heavy black and yellow aura. Chaotic aura, yin and yang aura, and black and yellow aura are useful for planting the Bodhi tree. Liu blinked his eyes and was a little surprised when he saw the three auras converging. The chaotic aura represented the chaos at the beginning of the world. The yin and yang aura represented the transformation of yin and yang after the creation of the world. The black and yellow aura represented the heaviness of the earth and the vitality of all living things. Among the three, it was reasonable to use the black and yellow aura. However, he didn't know what to do with the other two. Well, let be. Liu waved his hand and ignored it. After the bronze immortal palace transformed into an immortal mansion building, the chaotic aura and yin and yang aura were directly integrated into the space of the mall. The chaotic aura permeated the spatial boundary of the mall space, but he didn't know what it was for. The yin and yang aura spread throughout the space. The power of yin and yang evolution evolved into various changes in the space, such as weather changes, temperature changes, seasonal changes, and so on. Except for a little bit of the black and yellow aura given to Zhou Yi to forge the Xianyuan sword. The rest was integrated into the ground of the 9 floating islands, evolving the vitality of the earth. At this moment, the 3 auras gathered here, and a huge vitality was born. In the blink of an eye, a sparkling and translucent jade-like blue light was born. Emerald green branches and leaves bloomed from the soil, stretched out, and grew at an extremely fast speed visible to the naked eye. In less than a moment, a Bodhi tree that was 10 feet tall, 3 inches thick, and sparkling and translucent like jade appeared in front of Liu. The Bodhi tree overflowed with spiritual light, and a mysterious aura spread out. As the branches and leaves swayed, the clear sound was like the sonorous sound of heaven and earth. Liu only felt refreshed, and the light of wisdom kept blooming in his mind. As expected of the enlightenment Bodhi tree, looking at such a wonderful Bodhi tree in front of him, Liu nodded and praised. It took a lot of the chaotic aura, the yin and yang aura, and the black and yellow aura in the bronze immortal palace to make the Bodhi tree sprout and grow. Seeing this effect, Liu felt that the consumption was worth it. The Bodhi tree is finished. What's left is the immortal sword Heavenly Lake and the teal Lotus Emperor weapon. Liu looked at the teal Lotus Emperor weapon in his hand, somewhat reluctant to part with it. It doesn't matter if the immortal sword Heavenly Lake turns into a lotus pond, but Liu raised the teal Lotus Emperor weapon in front of his eyes. This teal Lotus Emperor weapon that has just passed the heavenly tribulation and successfully attained the Tao has turned into a lotus in the lotus pond. Isn't it a bit of a waste of God's gift? Chapter 63. System. If I use the green Lotus Emperor weapon as a lotus seed, can I still use its power? The green Lotus Emperor weapon had already passed the heavenly tribulation and was accepted by this world. The next time he used the green Lotus Emperor weapon's power, he wouldn't have to worry about the heavenly tribulation. Liu didn't want to waste this kind of power. The store is the user's foundation. Everything in the store is under the user's control. The user can use any power in the store. Is that so? After hearing the system's explanation, Liu heaved a sigh of relief. Since it wouldn't affect him if he used the green Lotus Emperor weapon as a lotus seed, he would just plant it. After walking around the garden of the Immortal Mansion, Liu chose a suitable location. Let's do it here. Liu walked to the side of a hill and pointed. Use the Immortal Sword Heavenly Lake as the foundation to build a lotus pond. Clang! It sounded as if thousands of swords were clashing against each other, producing a sword hum. The huge Immortal Sword Heavenly Lake flew out of the resource warehouse, and the water surged in the air. Endless sword lights whizzed around, and the eerie sword intent swept across the sky. The sharp and cold aura made one tremble in fear. An invisible force imprisoned the entire Immortal Sword Heavenly Lake. Even though the sword hum was getting more and more intense, it still couldn't break free from this invisible force. The Immortal Sword Heavenly Lake slowly descended and landed on the ground. On the ground, a black and yellow energy spiraled up and circled around the Immortal Sword Heavenly Lake. Then, a brilliant light rose up. Boom! Rumble! The ground shook violently for a while, then calmed down. After a while, the light dissipated. A crystal-clear 9 bins lotus pond appeared in front of Liu. The 9 bins lotus pond was like a sleeping dragon. A simple and unadorned bluestone fence surrounded the lotus pond. Outside the fence was a bluestone path, hidden by the forest, winding and secluded. That's it. Looking at the quiet and elegant lotus pond in front of him, Liu smiled and walked to the side of the lotus pond. He reached into the water and touched it. Ripples appeared, and water splashed everywhere. After the Immortal Sword Heavenly Lake turned into a lotus pond, the lake water that contained boundless sword chi became the same as ordinary water. Liu looked at the water stain on his hand in surprise. As the controller of space, he naturally knew that this was just a facade. The boundless sword chi contained within the Immortal Sword Heavenly Lake was not reduced in the slightest. However, in the past, the sword light was like water. Now, the sword light had transformed into water. There is no longer a difference between sword chi and lake water. Just now, he had reached out his hand to stir up the lake water and cause the water to ripple, because it was Liu who had done it. As a space manipulator, he was naturally immune to any attacks from space. If it were anyone else who dared to reach out and touch the lake water, they would be instantly turned into ashes by the sword chi. Looks like I'll have to set up a privilege to prevent accidental injuries. What if little Tingting comes here to play with the water one day? The consequences? Thinking up to this point, Liu hurriedly gave little Tingting an immunity privilege so that she wouldn't be accidentally injured one day. The lotus pond had been built, and the next step was to plant the lotus flowers. Planting the teal Lotus Emperor weapon like a lotus flower. This is really holding the teal Lotus Emperor weapon in front of his eyes. Liu looked at it longingly for a while. Forget it. It's not like I can't use its power anyway. Even if the day comes when I really need to use it as a weapon, I can take it out at any time. Letting out a long breath, Liu waved his hand and threw the teal Lotus Emperor weapon into the lotus pond. The lotus seed has been thrown in, beginning activation. As the system's stiff voice rang out, the chaotic aura that filled the boundaries of the merchant city shook violently. Like a long, hazy dragon, it howled as it charged toward the lotus pond. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The teal Lotus Emperor weapon, which was floating motionlessly in the lotus pond, instantly changed when it was hit by the chaotic aura. The jade-green lotus leaves extended rapidly, and the pink lotus flowers bloomed. A thin but vast life force suddenly sprouted. Pieces of jade-green lotus leaves extended in the lotus pond, and pink lotus flowers bloomed in the lotus pond. In a short while, countless green lotuses had grown to fill the entire lotus pond. The chaotic aura has activated the vitality of the teal Lotus Emperor weapon and made it grow again. Seeing this scene, Liu thought to himself. Legend had it that the teal Thearka's original form was the chaotic green lotus. Looking at this situation, it seemed like the rumors were true. After the lotus pond was filled with green lotuses, the chaotic aura dissipated and filled the boundaries of the merchant city. In front of Liu, there is only a huge lotus pond filled with green lotuses. The lotus leaves that reach the heavens are infinitely jade green, and the lotus flowers that reflect the sun are exceptionally red. Seeing the scene in front of him, Liu couldn't help but recite this poem. There seemed to be many lotuses in front of him, but in reality, there was only one. Even though the entire lotus pond was filled with green lotuses, they were all part of the teal lotus emperor weapon. This pool of green lotuses contains an enormous amount of power. Qi Song Zi's immortal sword Heavenly Pond was the pond water, and the teal Thearka's emperor weapon was the lotus. How extravagant was this? The system said that I can use all the power in the shop space at will. It's true indeed. With a thought, spots of sword light circled around his fingertips like swimming fish. The sword moved according to his thoughts, as if it was his arm. He could control it more freely and flexibly than before. At this moment, Liu also understood what it meant when it said that the shop space was the user's foundation. It turns out that as long as the power is incorporated into the shop space, I can use it at will without the system's transfer. In the past, all the power that Liu used was actually the system's credit. For example, when Liu wanted to fly, the entire process would be like this. First, he would choose an energy source, such as the energy contained in the crocodile ancestor's body or the energy contained in the heart of the demon god. Then, he would let the system extract the energy to drive the flying skill that Liu chose. In this way, the power that Liu used had to be transferred by the system before it could be used. But now it was different. If Liu wanted to fly now, he did not need to go through the system at all. He could directly use the sword escape technique from the lotus pond to fly. He could also use the power of the emperor weapon, Green Lotus, to cross thousands of rivers and mountains. After understanding this problem, Liu realized that the things he could use were far more than that. For example, the chaotic qi, the yin and yang qi, the black and yellow qi, and even the enlightenment Bodhi tree's spiritual intelligence could be used. As expected, it's the foundation, Liu exclaimed in delight. The shop space was only in its initial stages, and the shop building was only in its embryonic form, but it had already brought about such great benefits. When the system was sold all over the world, and resources from all over the world were gathered, how powerful would the shop space be? With this as the foundation, how powerful would Liu be? It's true that the shop space is the foundation, but my own cultivation is the true foundation. Liu extended his palm in front of his eyes and smiled. Although the shop space is powerful, it's still just an external object. Only when one's own strength is true strength. Looks like I have to continue staying in the Kangwu Academy for a while. Chapter 64. I still know too little about this world. Liu found a stone stool beside the lotus pond and sat down, thinking about his future plans. As one of the top 10 Confucian sacred grounds, the Kangwu Academy must have countless books. I can scan and record this information through the system. It's very helpful for me to understand this world. After making up his mind, Liu planned to continue staying in the Kangwu Academy for a while. At the very least, he had to understand the cultivation methods of this world and grasp the structure of this world. Only then would it be beneficial for his future actions. Right now, the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon is undergoing tribulation outside, and it's very chaotic. I'd better not join in the fun for the time being. Thinking about the big incident he had caused, Liu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Fortunately, I took out the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon out of curiosity and caused the tribulation. Nothing happened during the tribulation. Liu took a deep breath with lingering fear. If I took out the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon when I was fighting with the enemy and the tribulation came, I would be in big trouble. He thought about how he had taken out the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon proudly and planned to kill the enemy in one fell swoop, but the tribulation suddenly came. He couldn't act cool and was struck by lightning instead. That scene was too beautiful. He didn't dare to look at it. It's still night outside, and everyone is making a ruckus because of the tribulation. No one will pay attention to me. So, I'll wait until tomorrow morning before going back. Liu opened the system's resource library and planned to take this opportunity to clean it up. I searched everywhere in the previous world and plundered a lot of things, but I didn't have the time to take a careful inventory. Looking back at his experience in the previous world, Liu realized that he had indeed forgotten a lot of things. First, there was the pile of broken Buddhist artifacts. In the Great Thunderclap Temple, Liu ordered Zhou Yi to plunder everything, and even the plaque and Buddha statue were taken down. These things are useless for now. However, I heard that Buddhism also exists in this world. I might be able to fool those baldies one day if I keep them. I'll leave them there for now. Then, there was the crocodile ancestor's corpse. Liu had been extracting this thing as an energy source, and he didn't find any further use for now. He could only leave it there. The divine spring of the forbidden land of the desolate ancient. This thing is pretty good. It can revive the dead. What about the elixirs of immortality? Liu suddenly thought of a question. Since the Bodhi seed could be grown and the green lotus, the archweapon, could be grown like a lotus, could the elixir of immortality be grown? System, can I plant these elixirs of immortality? The elixir of immortality that the user possesses is only the fruit, the seed of the elixir of immortality. It can't be planted. Aren't they seeds? Liu pondered and nodded. It seemed like it was very troublesome for the immortal herb to bear seeds, just like nirvana rebirth. It was no surprise that the immortal medicine fruit in his hand could not be planted. System, tell the spirit of the heavenly book to give Zhou Yi a mission and get a few elixirs of immortality for the founder to play with. The Grand Master's garden is empty. How is that appropriate? At this time, Liu finally looked like the mastermind behind the scenes. He had learned the great art of opening the mouth of an official and running the legs of a servant. There was a large pile of various weapons and treasures collected in the Lotus Thearch's tomb. There were more than a dozen saint-level weapons, including the Soul Buster clock. Basically, they were not used and could only be put aside. These source stones. Liu saw the source stones collected in Xiao Tingting's house and had a thought. System, can these source stones be buried under the floating island and become source stones again? Yes, but it doesn't make sense. All right. Liu sighed. He originally planned to bury the source stones underground and see if the source stones could be expanded the next time the space expanded. However, the system directly blocked his thoughts. There was no such thing as a good thing. What's left is the fire region. Looking at the raging flames in the system warehouse, Liu smiled. This is a good thing, but how should he use it? System, can these flames be used as materials in the shopping mall space? Ever since he understood that he could use all the energy in the shopping mall space at will, Liu had been racking his brains to constantly enrich the space's power. The 9 types of flames in the fire region were all extraordinary. Among them, the invisible immortal fire was immortal level power. Once it was included in the shopping mall space, Liu could use more power. Flame materials are not necessary for the shopping mall's construction. If the user requests, these flames can be included in the shopping mall's lighting function. Lighting function? In other words, lamps? When Liu heard this answer, even though his mental fortitude had been tempered by the Bodhi seed and the Lotus Emperor weapon, he still sucked in a breath of cold air. These were immortal level flames. Using these things as lamps? Such a nouveau riche would easily lose friends. But I like it. Include the fire region's flames in the immortal mansion's lighting function. Order received. Lighting function beginning construction. As the system's voice rang out, the flames in the resource warehouse disappeared instantly. In all the halls and courtyards of the immortal abode, one bronze lamp after another was being produced in an ancient style. A moment later, 1,800 bronze lamps of various types appeared in the immortal mansion. Construction of the immortal mansion's lighting function completed. User, please choose the commonly used lamp flame. Commonly used lamp flame? Liu was slightly taken aback. Choose one of the 9 types of flames as the commonly used lamp flame? What about the other flames? The commonly used lamp flame is used for lighting. The other flames are hidden in the wick. The user can change the lamp flame at will. Is that so? Liu nodded. Since it could be changed at will, the other flames were hidden as well. There was no loss. It didn't matter. As for lighting, of course, the white moonlight sacred flame is more suitable. After a moment's thought, Liu chose the commonly used lamp flame. As soon as Liu's voice fell, the 1,800 bronze lamps of various types in the immortal mansion lit up with a holy white light. For a moment, the entire immortal mansion was enveloped in a holy white flame. The immortal mansion, which was surrounded by immortal chi, suddenly had a holy aura, like a palace in the moon. Suddenly, little Ting let out a panicked cry. What's going on? Liu was shocked. He hurriedly jumped up and took a step forward, instantly appearing in the room where little Ting was playing. Entering the room, even Liu was shocked by the scene in front of him. Under the holy light, little Ting was standing among a pile of cloth dolls, her face full of panic. Little Ting's body was blooming with a bright moonlight, which resonated with the holy light in the room. Little Ting's petite figure was completely covered in the brilliant moonlight. Moonlight, sacred flame, extreme, physique. It seems that there is some connection between the two. Liu smiled, walked up to little Ting, and picked her up. Little Ting, good girl. Don't be afraid. It's all right. After comforting little Ting, Liu thought of another problem. Should I teach little Ting how to cultivate? Extreme physique coupled with the extreme sutra seems to have the bearing of a great emperor. Then should I cultivate an empress? Chapter 65. Little Ting was a good child. Liu comforted her for a while, and she was fine. After a while, little Ting fell asleep in Liu's arms. If I wasn't such a loser in my previous life, not only would I have a story with the goddess, but we could even have a child. Unfortunately, looking down at the sleeping little Ting, Liu sighed secretly. After putting little Ting on the bed and covering her with a blanket, Liu waved his hand to turn off the lights in the room and walked out of the room. Liu was interrupted by little Ting's scream just now, so he was not done with his inventory. He still had 3 things left to clean up. One was the divine thought of the great success holy body. After being broken down by the system, his cultivation comprehension, secret techniques, and battle experience were extracted. There was still pure spirit energy left. The other was the remnant soul of the Lotus Emperor's descendant. It was dealt with in the same way. For the time being, other than the pure spiritual energy that could be used to enhance Liu's spiritual essence, no other uses have been found. The last one was the heart of the demon god. After successfully passing the tribulation with the Lotus Emperor weapon, the heart of the demon god became more vigorous. However, this thing could still only be used as an energy source. I'll leave it for now. There will be a time when I can use it. After closing the system resource library, Liu found a room nearby and planned to sleep. He had been so busy as soon as he came back. He opened up the space, did a lot of construction, and even took the time to pass the tribulation. Liu felt as if all the bones in his body were aching. The night was silent. In the morning, the sunlight coming in through the window woke Liu up. Sunlight? There's no sun in the space, right? Liu got up and opened the window. He was confused when he saw the sun hanging high in the sky. System, where did this sun come from? Since when did the store space have a sun? The store space is mounted on the main world. The sun that the user sees now is the projection of the main world's sun in the store space. I see. Liu nodded. Since it's mounted, can the store space be mounted in other worlds? When the user has enough authority, they can choose to mount the mall space in any world. When the shopping mall is developed to a large enough size, it will be equivalent to a world of its own. Understood. It was still too early, and Liu was too lazy to spend time thinking about it. After that, Liu woke Xiao Tingting up and exchanged some food for her. After settling her down, he turned around and left. They were teleported back to the dorms of the Kangwu Academy. Liu yawned and pretended to rub his eyes as if he had just woken up. He walked out of the room. Quick, quick, quick. Today's task is very important. We have to plant lotus flowers in hundreds of ponds. Everyone, move faster. Don't let anything go wrong. This is a task personally assigned to me by the mountain elder, so I must do it well. With ancestral master Green Lotus attaining his Tao, I'm afraid our Kangwu Mountain will become Lotus Mountain in the future. This isn't just limited to our Kangwu Mountain. Lotus flowers are being planted all over the Great Chu. Yes, when ancestral master Green Lotus attained his Tao, he once said, "Who is the one who bestows the love of the lotus?" Once these words were spoken, everyone in the Great Chu began to plant lotus flowers. When Liu walked out of the room, he saw a bustling scene. Countless disciples, odd job workers, and even the academy's instructors were busy planting lotus flowers. What the heck? It's like this? Liu was a little dumbfounded. "Hey, who's that? Why are you still standing there like a fool? Why aren't you working?" A delicate shout came from behind. Liu turned around and saw Yin Luo. At this moment, Yin Luo's forehead was covered in a thin layer of sweat. She was holding a basket of lotus seeds and staring at Liu. Brother Yu, it's you?" Seeing that the lazy person was Liu, Yin Luo shook her head slightly. "Brother Yu, your body is weak, so don't do such heavy work." Yin Luo hadn't even finished speaking when she suddenly cried out in surprise. She threw down the bamboo basket in her hand and ran towards Liu in a few steps. Then, she opened her eyes wide and stared at Liu. "You?" Yin Luo looked at Liu's body several times. Her mouth was wide open, and her face was filled with disbelief. "How can your body, have such vigorous energy and blood? Also your hair." Yin Luo looked at Liu. She was so shocked that she started to speak incoherently. "After I ate the pill you gave me, I went back to sleep. Then, I felt as if my whole body was different." Liu pretended to be confused. He looked at Yin Luo with gratitude and said, Thank you, Steward Yin. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the strength to truss a chicken." Yin Luo choked for a long time and couldn't speak. She stretched out her hand and pulled Liu. Then, she said in a panic, "Quick, let my father take a look at you. There's something wrong with your situation." "Something wrong?" A hint of panic appeared on Liu's face. In fact, he was laughing in his heart. "My situation can't be any more right. I have an innate sage body, and I've also been baptized by this world after the heavenly tribulation. I've fully displayed the might of this constitution. I have the tyrannical body of the sage body, and the innate affinity of the sage body with the great Tao of heaven and earth. I have a peerless innate talent. Let's go. Yin Luo shouted anxiously. She pulled Liu and ran away. Liu had no choice but to follow Yin Luo to Steward Yin's place. "Greetings, Steward Yin." They arrived at the lobby of the chores yard and saw that Steward Yin was writing something in the study room. Liu quickly went forward to greet him. Liu respected Steward Yin very much. With Liu's current strength, he could kill 100 Steward Yins as easily as blowing off dust. However, Steward Yin had once lent a helping hand to Liu when he was still weak. Liu wasn't the kind of ingrate who would turn hostile and not recognize people. Therefore, his attitude towards Steward Yin and his daughter was still very close. "You've come?" Steward Yin raised his head from the pile of books and smiled at Liu and Yin Luo. "What's the matter?" Steward Yin suddenly stood up and stared straight at Liu. "You, actually, father, quickly take a look at him. What happened to him? Why did his body suddenly become like this? There won't be any problem, right?" Yin Luo said anxiously to Steward Yin. "What problem? Of course there's no problem. His body can't be any better." Steward Yin stood up and walked to Liu's side and stretched out his hand to rest on Liu's wrist. Feeling Liu's strong pulse, Steward Yin opened his mouth wide and couldn't close it for a long time. "You've only eaten one vitality-nurturing and blood-nourishing pill, and your body has actually undergone such a tremendous change?" Steward Yin released his hand and looked at Liu's body. "Previously, your vitality was like a candle in the wind, but now it's like the blazing sun. With such a scene, Could it be the legendary 9 cycles of samsara? 9 cycles of samsara? What does that mean? Luo asked with a frown. According to legend, the 9 cycles of samsara has 9 signs of death and 9 signs of life. Previously, your vitality was withered, and you were on the verge of death. Now, your vitality is like a rainbow, shining with boundless radiance. I'm afraid that this situation can only be explained by the 9 cycles of samsara. A brilliant smile bloomed on Steward Yin's face. The 9 cycles of samsara is a peerless cultivation talent. Good, good, good. First, there was Ancestor Green Lotus, and now, the 9 cycles of samsara has appeared in this world. This is the sign of my blue parasol sect's great prosperity. Liu, are you willing to acknowledge me as your master? Steward Yin smiled as he looked at Liu, and his face was filled with anticipation. Father, you want to take him as your disciple? That's great. That's great. Luo clapped and jumped up in joy. This disciple is willing. Liu didn't think that he needed to acknowledge anyone as his master, but when he saw Steward Yin's face filled with anticipation and Luo's joyful expression, he couldn't bring himself to refuse. All right, I'll take it as repaying a debt of gratitude. Liu bowed to Steward Yin. This disciple pays his respects to Master. P.S. Many people saw the main character acknowledging a master, and they started to curse. Let's not talk about the debt of gratitude. Everyone had an opinion that Steward Yin's status was too low. But when did I say that Steward Yin's status was low? I have an explanation for this world cultivation settings, and it doesn't mean that those who do manual labor have a low status. If a sweeping monk can be awesome, why can't a steward be awesome? Chapter 66. Good, good. Manager Yin laughed heartily as he reached out to help Liu up. It's my fortune to have such a fine disciple to teach me. Master, you flatter me. Liu smiled as he stood up. Looking at this new master of his, he was filled with emotion. When he just transmigrated, Liu had fallen down and fainted in the wilderness. If it wasn't for Manager Yin's help, Liu would probably have been bitten by wild beasts long ago. When he came to the academy, he was completely powerless. If it wasn't for Manager Yin looking after him, he probably wouldn't even be able to beat the beggars on the side of the road. Even with the system, if it wasn't for the vitality nurturing and blood nourishing pill, who knew when he'd be able to successfully activate the system? Therefore, Manager Yin's family was really Liu's saviors. Even if Liu's horizons were broadened and his aspirations were high, he still didn't have any airs to put on when facing Manager Yin's family. More importantly, when Liu transmigrated to this world, he was all alone and weak. If he wanted to gain a foothold in this world, a sufficiently strong sect background was an extremely good aid. To put it in a more utilitarian way, with his relationship with Manager Yin and the Ancestor Green Lotus that he'd randomly created, Kangwu Academy was Liu's best choice. Therefore, taking Manager Yin as his master and deepening their relationship was also an extremely good choice. Moreover, wasn't there still the Ancestor Green Lotus? Although exposing his relationship with the Ancestor Green Lotus would cause countless people to chase after Liu in search of the Ancestor Green Lotus, it would bring endless trouble. However, it wasn't like he couldn't reveal this trump card when it was necessary. Since that's the case, then I'll just obediently be a disciple. What if he doesn't just teach me martial arts, but also gives me a daughter? Thinking up to here, Liu secretly laughed and glanced at Luo. That girl was still laughing at the side and didn't pay attention to Liu's little actions at all. Steward Yin had seen it, but he would never have guessed what Liu was thinking. Yes, since you've become my disciple, you're no longer a servant. Well, you're not really a handyman anyway. Manager Yin stroked his beard as he smiled at Liu. From now onward, you're a disciple of my Kangwu Academy. My Kangwu Academy is the cultivation ground of the Confucian school. The disciples of the academy were all scholars. Therefore, you also need to take a courtesy name. Manager Yin returned to his desk and sat down. He took out a register and began to fill in Liu's name on it. Do you have a courtesy name? While filling in Liu's name, Steward Ian raised his head and asked Liu a question. Courtesy name? A thought flashed through Liu's mind. He bowed to Steward Ian and answered, Disciple Liu, courtesy name Qinglian. Green Lotus? What? Green Lotus? When Liu said his courtesy name, Manager Ian was stunned and stopped writing. Ian Luo stared at Liu with wide eyes. Her shoulders trembled as if she was trying her best to hold back her laughter. Is there something wrong? Liu had an innocent look on his face, as if he really didn't know anything. Hee. Ha! When Ian Luo saw Liu's appearance, she finally couldn't hold back her laughter. As she laughed, she pointed at Liu. Don't tell me you didn't know it all. Something so big happened last night, and you didn't know it all? You slept so deeply? The process of the 9 cycles of reincarnation body, turning from deathly stillness to vitality, is like a butterfly breaking out of its cocoon. Last night was when your vitality was changing, so it's understandable that you didn't hear it. Manager Ian thought for a moment and thought of a very reasonable explanation. I have an innate sage body. What the hell is the 9 cycles of reincarnation body? When Liu heard Steward Ian talking about the 9 reincarnation physique, he felt a little depressed and muttered to himself. Brother you missed the big scene last night. Ian Luo raised her head proudly and looked at Liu with a faint smile. She looked like she was showing off. Luo don't keep me in suspense. Manager Ian smiled and shook his head. He raised his eyes and looked at Liu. Master will tell you directly. Last night, our Blue Parasol Academy's ancestor Green Lotus proved the supreme Tao and advanced to a supreme Grandmaster. The sonorous voice of the great Tao spread throughout the world, and the divine spirits of the 5 directions congratulated him. Supreme Grandmaster? What realm is that? Liu heard this term many times, but he still couldn't make sense of it. He didn't understand the cultivation realms of this world. So how could he know what a Supreme Grandmaster was? Shouldn't you be surprised by the ancestor's name? Ancestor Green Lotus. The ancestor's name is Green Lotus, and you dare to call yourself Green Lotus? Seeing that Liu's focus was in the wrong direction, Ian Luo quickly reminded Liu where the main point was. All right. Ancestor Green Lotus or Supreme Grandmaster Green Lotus? To Liu, it didn't deter him at all. When he saw Ian Luo's anxious look, Liu couldn't help but think mischievously, Your ancestor Green Lotus has already been planted in the lotus pond by me. Master, did my courtesy name break a taboo? Liu pretended to be cautious and asked Manager Ian. There's nothing to avoid. Our Blue Parasol Academy doesn't have that many rules. After ancestor Green Lotus proved his Tao, countless people changed their courtesy name to Jing Lian, Shi Lian, Mu Lian, and so on. It's very rare to see someone like you who directly used Green Lotus. Manager Ian looked at Liu with a smile, and it made Liu feel a little embarrassed. Liu lowered his head slightly. All right, it's no big deal. Manager Ian smiled. Under Ian Luo's astonished gaze, he lifted the brush and wrote down Liu's name. Liu, courtesy name Qinglian. Don't embarrass ancestor Green Lotus by using this courtesy name. You have to cultivate seriously, understand? Ian Luo reminded from the side. Liu quickly nodded. At a time like this, he naturally couldn't refute. After all, he couldn't just say that he had planted ancestor Green Lotus in the lotus pond by himself. What supreme realm of Tao validation? It was just something he made up. If Liu dared to say such a thing, he would definitely be taught a terrible lesson. Since you've joined my Blue Parasol School, Master will tell you about the situation in my Blue Parasol Academy. Manager Ian raised his head and looked solemnly at Liu. My Blue Parasol Academy is one of the 10 great sacred lands of the Confucian school, and it has been established for tens of thousands of years. Over the years, my Blue Parasol Academy has produced countless geniuses, and the number of cultivators who have become grandmasters and grandmasters is uncountable. Now that ancestor Green Lotus has attained Tao validation, my Blue Parasol Academy has a supreme grandmaster, and it's already one of the strongest sects in the world. It's actually that powerful. Liu was secretly shocked. How deep was the foundation of a sect that had existed for over 10,000 years. Presumably, the books in the book collection tower were all-encompassing. Looks like my decision to stay in Blue Parasol Academy was right. As long as I approach the library and scan all the books in it, I'll definitely be able to understand a lot of information about this world. Manager Ian nodded with satisfaction when he saw Li Yu's shocked expression. When a newcomer joined a sect, he had to develop a sense of belonging to the sect. Publicizing the glory of the sect and declaring the status of the sect was the best method. The 10 sacred lands of Confucianism, the 9 paradise of Taoism, and the 8 great temples of Buddhism. These are the top sects in the world. My Blue Parasol Academy is the 4th sect in the world to be guarded by a supreme grandmaster. Our Blue Parasol Academy can be said to be a true top sect in the world. Manager Ian raised his head proudly, as if he was very proud of this top sect in the world. Now that you've joined my sect, you must cultivate seriously and not slack off. Yes. Li Yu nodded in agreement, and then he asked Manager Ian, Master, you still haven't told me what the Supreme Grandmaster Realm is. Chapter 67. You haven't even entered the sect, but you're already thinking about becoming a Supreme Grandmaster? You're quite ambitious. Ian Luo interrupted from the side and giggled at Li Yu. There's nothing wrong with having lofty ambitions. Manager Ian smiled and nodded. Since you've asked, I'll tell you about our Confucian sect's cultivation. I'll let you know what's going on. Manager Ian stood up from the table and walked to the window. He pointed at the sky outside the window and turned to look at Li Yu. Heaven and earth give birth to all living things. Therefore, our cultivation originates from this heaven and earth. Heaven and earth? Li Yu shook his head blankly, indicating that he didn't understand. It's heaven and earth. Manager Ian turned around and pointed at himself before pointing at Li Yu and Ian Luo. The world is heaven and earth, and the human body is also heaven and earth. Our cultivation is to go from our own inner world to the outer world of the world. There are countless sects in the world, and their cultivation methods are all different. However, in the end, they all come from one's own body to heaven and earth. The entire cultivation process is to recognize heaven and earth, understand heaven and earth, and control heaven and earth. Master, please enlighten me. Hearing Manager Yin's theory, Li Yu was completely confused. What heaven and earth? Who knew what was going on? Li Yu hadn't come into contact with the cultivation of this world, even if he'd exchanged for the endless scripture and opened up the sea of bitterness. The two theories were completely different. All right. Manager Ian smiled and shook his head. You still don't understand these things. It's still too early for me to tell you this. That's right. That's right. Father always talks about mysterious things. I'm already dozing off from listening to it. Ian Luo sat on a stool at the side and tapped her mouth. She had an impatient look on her face. I'll give you a simple explanation. Manager Ian glared at Ian Luo. Then he turned to Li Yu and said, Our Confucian sect's cultivation begins with cultivating the body and nurturing the qi. Then, it's investigating things to gain knowledge. Finally, it's sincerity and righteousness. Cultivating the body and nurturing the qi is to gather the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and absorb the essence of the sun and moon. It's to consolidate one's foundation and nurture one's qi. Manager Ian stretched out his hand and lightly tapped the bronze paperweight on the table. A clear fingerprint deeply embedded itself in the bronze paperweight. Do you see it? I didn't use any spiritual energy, only the strength of my body. This is the effect of cultivating the body. Steward Ian retracted his finger and said to Li Yu, Cultivating the body is to strengthen the body, making it full of qi and blood and making it powerful. Cultivating the body is the foundation of nurturing the qi. Nurturing the qi's qi is qi ti's qi cultivated the qi. The stronger the body, the more abundant the blood and qi, the easier it is to nurture qi, and the faster it is to cultivate true qi. To nurture, ss qis nurturing qi, ss nurture, T, cultivating, S, nurture. The Tao is Qi, S, nurturing Qi's nurturing Qi, S, nurturing Qi is soft and gentle. Qi's nurturing Qi is the most stable. Even if one can't cultivate Qi, they can still prolong one's life. The Buddhist's golden body, S, Vajras, is indestructible and has infinite strength. Qi, nurturing Qi is the slowest, but it's the strongest in the body cultivation realm. The other sect's body cultivation technique is even more varied. As for the variant demons in the uncivilized lands, they are born with tyrannical bodies. From the beginning of their cultivation, they directly refine their monster Qi from their Qi and blood. Then, through constant fighting and plundering, they devour the Qi and blood of others to condense their true Qi. Next, Manager Ian gave Liu a detailed introduction of the body cultivation realm's cultivation methods. For example, there were fist techniques that tempered the body and blood, various kinds of pills that nourished Qi and blood, medicinal baths that aided cultivation, various kinds of food made from the flesh and blood of monsters with tyrannical Qi and blood, and so on. Liu had memorized all of these things, but he wouldn't use this method. Regardless of whether or not he still needed to nourish his Qi and blood, even if he did, the Qi and blood contained in a drop of blood from the crocodile ancestor's corpse, or rather, the life force, was enough to make countless people explode. After body cultivation is Qi cultivation. Seeing Liu silently memorize this knowledge, Manager Ian nodded inwardly and continued. The human body is the inner world, and the world is the outer world. However, the inner and outer worlds are not connected. If you want to connect the inner and outer worlds, you have to rely on your own refined, true Qi to break open your acupoints. Only then can you communicate with the outer world and draw spirit into your body. Therefore, the Qi cultivation realm is a process of constantly opening your acupoints and drawing spirit into your body to improve your true Qi. When the acupoints in your body are completely smooth and your true Qi is filled to the brim as one, you have reached the great success of Qi cultivation. Cultivators in the body cultivation realm are called scholars. In our Confucian sect, body cultivation is called scholars, and Qi cultivation is called scholars. As for the outer world, there are all kinds of titles, such as warriors, swordsmen, Taoists, lay scholars, necromancers, warlocks, and so on. After body cultivation and Qi cultivation, it is time to investigate things and attain knowledge. At this stage, the cultivator starts to communicate with the heaven and earth. They can control the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth with a wave of their hand. They already have the power to fly in the sky, burrow into the earth, move mountains, and fill seas. Investigating things and attaining knowledge is what our Confucian sect calls it. In the outer world, this stage is called psychic enlightenment. Psychic enlightenment is to communicate with the spiritual Qi of heaven and earth, and enlightenment is to come in contact with the great Tao of heaven and earth. Cultivators at this stage are called great masters. In the outer world, they're called psychic great masters or enlightenment great masters. After saying this, Manager Yin's throat became somewhat dry. He reached out his hand and took a sip of tea. Master, the tea is already cold. I'll change it for you. When Liu saw this, he promptly reached out his hand and picked up the teapot on the table. I'll go and make the tea. Yin Luo jumped up from the stool and snatched the teapot from Liu's hand. Then, she turned around and ran out. This girl is definitely trying to take advantage of this opportunity to slip away. Manager Ian put down the teacup in his hand and shook his head with a smile. Junior sister is already very familiar with these things, so she naturally doesn't want to hear them. Master, you don't need to take offense. Liu smiled as he spoke in Ian Luo's defense. She's just trying to be lazy. Manager Ian shook his head and said, don't worry about her. Let's continue. Investigating things and attaining knowledge is the psychic enlightenment realm. The psychic enlightenment realm is like a heavenly moat that has blocked countless people. Therefore, cultivators who can advance to the psychic enlightenment realm are all people with outstanding innate talent. After saying this, Manager Yin's face was full of emotion. After investigating things and attaining knowledge is sincerity and righteousness. In the outer world, these are called attaining the Tao, confirming the Tao, and achieving the Tao. Sincerity and righteousness is the process of comprehending one's own Tao, practicing it, and achieving one's own Tao. Cultivators at this stage are called great masters. Attaining the Tao is called great masters. Confirming the Tao is called great masters. Achieving the Tao is called supreme great masters. When Ancestor Green Lotus confirmed the supreme great Tao, his sonorous voice spread in all directions. This is the supreme great master who achieved the Tao. It is said that after achieving the Tao, there's also the Tao of celestial beings. I don't know about this. After Manager Yin finished speaking, he walked in front of Liu and said, "Your innate talent is out of the ordinary. You must cultivate seriously. Master is very optimistic about you." "Yes." Liu nodded. Then he suddenly thought of a problem and promptly asked Manager Yin, "Master, what realm are you in now?" "Master?" Manager Yin smiled and shook his head. "Master is still at the stage of practicing my own Tao. The day of my breakthrough is still far away." "Practicing your own Tao? Great Master?" "Master is actually a great master." Liu looked at Manager Yin in surprise. He couldn't see it all. The chores yard was equivalent to a logistics department. This wasn't an important position, but there was actually a great master in charge. Practicing one's own Tao is practicing it personally. Master's Tao is knowing etiquette. As the chores yard's manager, I am practicing my own Tao. As if seeing Liu's surprise, Manager Yin explained, "If you don't take a few steps, you won't be able to travel 1,000 miles. In the academy, there are great masters who carry water every day. Practicing it personally? I see." Liu nodded thoughtfully. He secretly made a note not to be too pretentious here. What if one day he met a great master who was practicing his own Tao as a gatekeeper? P.S. Post a complaint. In the past few days, there were people finding fault in the book review section every day. When he clicked on the name, it was actually an author. Why did the author make things difficult for the author? I didn't provoke you. Chapter 68. The path of cultivation in this world is like this. Liu frowned and pondered deeply after he finished listening to Manager Yin's explanation. Cultivating the body and nurturing qi is essentially the process of refining essence into qi. To attain knowledge through investigation, or to communicate with the spirit and comprehend the Tao, it's obviously refining qi into spirit. The so-called attaining the Tao, or achieving the Tao, is to refine the spirit and return to the void. As for heavenly beings, it's definitely at the void refinement and Tao integration stage. Even though the cultivation methods are different, they're essentially still on the path of essence, energy, and spirit. The body, true qi, and divine sense. The cultivation of any world can't be separated from these three. So, the cultivation methods of the previous world are actually essentially the same as the cultivation methods of this world. It's just that the methods are different. I have to find an opportunity to go to the library as soon as possible. Only by completely understanding the cultivation methods of Dark Parasol Academy will I be able to have an accurate position. Liu stopped pondering and raised his head to look at Manager Yin. If he wanted to go to the library, he had to rely on Manager Yin's strength. "Do you understand now?" When he saw Liu raise his head from deep thought, Manager Yin asked with a smile, "Thank you for enlightening me, Master. I've benefited greatly." Liu stood up and replied, Since you have some understanding of cultivation, Master will first teach you a set of righteous body tempering fist. This fist technique is an introductory cultivation method of my Dark Parasol Academy, and it's most suitable for beginners to strengthen their bodies and strengthen their vital blood." As Manager Yin spoke, he brought Liu to the rear courtyard. "Watch carefully. Master will demonstrate it for you now." Manager Yin reminded Liu, and then he got into a stance and started to practice the righteous body tempering fist in the courtyard. When his fist technique was executed, every move and stance was firm and powerful. The only problem was that how unsightly. The corners of Li Yu's eyes twitched when he saw Manager Ian waving his arms and raising his legs like he was doing gymnastics. And he couldn't help but ridicule. Since his master taught him martial arts, he had to learn it. With a thought, Li Yu activated the spiritual intelligence of the Bodhi tree in the store space. The power of increasing comprehension was added to his body. Instantly, his ears became clearer and his eyes became clearer. He felt refreshed, and the light of wisdom continued to bloom in his mind. Manager Yin's every move, every movement, and every detail of his energy circulation were all very clear in Li Yu's eyes. A moment later, Manager Ian stopped and stood up. He asked Li Yu, "Have you memorized it?" "Disciple will remember." With the support of the Bodhi tree, how could he not remember a mere fist technique? Yes, it's good that you remember it. Manager Yin's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He was very surprised by Li Yu's reaction, but his expression did not change. If you remember, go back and practice more. This cultivation technique is the foundation of the foundation. You must not slack off. Yes, Li Yu quickly agreed. He knew very well that the more basic something was, the more important it was. Although Li Yu possessed great power, he was only at the beginning of his cultivation. Very good. Manager Ian nodded. Since you have become my disciple, you are already a disciple of the Kangwu Academy. Later, go to the storehouse and get a set of Academy disciple attire. Yes, as for living quarters, there are still a few residences for deacon disciples in the chores court. You can choose one yourself. A deacon disciple. Li Yu did not understand this title. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Manager Ian smiled. Our Kangwu Academy's disciples are divided into a few types. The first type is the Academy's students. These students do not have a specific master. Instead, they're divided into different classes according to their age, talent, and other factors. They're taught in groups, read books, listen to lectures, and cultivate in the academy. The other type is the deacon disciple. Speaking up to here, Manager Ian looked at Li Yu. Students like you who are under the tutelage of the academy's instructors and managers are considered deacon disciples. Deacon disciples learn from their masters and do not need to participate in group lectures. However, deacon disciples are responsible for some chores in the academy. Oh, Li Yu nodded. He already understood. Those students who taught in groups were similar to ordinary university students. Deacon disciples were similar to graduate students who followed their professors. However, these graduate students still needed to take on some of the student council's work. Then what kind of chores do I have to take on? Li Yu was very interested in this. It would be great if he could take on some chores in the library, such as being responsible for registering books. Then you would have the opportunity to scan the various books in the library. Generally speaking, deacon disciples follow their masters to take care of chores. I don't have much to do here, and Ian Luo is also taking care of chores for me. There is no need for you to be here. Manager Ian turned to look at Li Yu and smiled. Do you have any place you want to go? If you do, I will arrange it for you. That's great. Li Yu was overjoyed. This was really like someone giving him a pillow when he wanted to doze off. I like to read. I wonder if I can take on some chores in the library? Li Yu hurriedly raised his request to Manager Ian. Library? Manager Ian looked at Li Yu with a smile that wasn't a smile. You brat, you haven't learned how to walk yet and you want to run? You want to find a few cultivation methods in the library to practice, right? Hearing this, Li Yu could only make an awkward expression that said, "You saw through me." He couldn't say that he wanted to wipe out the library, right? You brat. Manager Ian scolded with a smile. Don't think of this kind of idea. Every cultivation method has a seal. Without permission, you can't even open the book. What's more, when you learn what, I have my own arrangements. Why are you fooling around? Master, I could take a look at other books, right? I don't have much knowledge, so it's better for me to read more books and understand more about the world's affairs. Li Yu saw that Manager Ian didn't relent and quickly found a very reasonable excuse. That makes sense. Manager Ian stroked his beard and nodded. All right, I'll greet Manager Lin of the library later and ask him to make a report. You can go to the library and take on the position of acting disciple. Thank you, Master. Liu had gotten what he wanted, so his words of thanks were sincere and sincere. An important place in the sect, like the library, would definitely be heavily guarded, under the circumstances that he didn't intend to fall out with Kangwu Academy. This method was the most suitable for Li Yu if he wanted to completely scan the books in the library. After that, Li Yu took Manager Yin's order and went to the storehouse to get a set of Academy disciple attire. It was a moon-white scholarly robe, and even the crown, belt, and boots were complete. When he held it in his hand, he felt that the clothes were soft and comfortable. Looks like there's something extraordinary about these clothes. Besides that, Li Yu also obtained a token that indicated his identity as an acting disciple. After he got his things and returned to the labor courtyard, Li Yu chose a single small courtyard at the northern side of the courtyard that was near the cliff as his residence from now on. When he saw this exquisite courtyard and compared it to the labor courtyard from before, Li Yu shook his head with a smile. I've finally broken free of my identity as a labor servant. From today onwards, this world will definitely become even more brilliant because of my arrival. I'm just waiting to go to the library tomorrow. Isn't it too satisfying to empty out Kangwu Academy's 10,000 years of wealth? Chapter 69. Your Yin Kongming's New Disciple. The steward of the library, Lin Jingji, raised his head from the book he was reading. He narrowed his eyes and looked at Li Yu. Qi and blood are like the blazing sun, and spiritual light is like the lustrous moon. That bastard Yin Kongming is actually so lucky? Lin Jingji put down the book in his hand and revealed a stiff smile to Li Yu. Kid, that bastard Yin Kongming is an uncouth fellow. You won't have a good time if you follow him. Why don't you become my disciple? Cough, cough. Li Yu was choked by Manager Lin's words and coughed. Manager Lin, I can't accept your words. Cough my ass. Manager Lin glared gloomily at Li Yu. He naturally knew that Li Yu had already become his disciple, so it was impossible for him to become someone else's disciple. Fortunately, that bastard Yin Kongming has some self-awareness. He knows that he can't teach such a fine jade like you well, so he's still new to send you to me. At least he's not completely muddle-headed. Lin Jingji stroked his beard and shook his head complacently. Since he's so sincere, then this old man will reluctantly help him teach his disciple. When he heard Manager Lin's words, Li Yu felt as if 10,000 alpacas were charging through his heart. Manager Lin, is it appropriate for you to think so highly of yourself? My master isn't as unreliable as you say, right? Moreover, when did he ask you to teach me? Li Yu understood in his heart that since Manager Lin dared to speak of Yin Kongming like this, then he definitely had a similar status as Yin Kongming. In other words, he was a great grandmaster that was practicing his own Tao. As expected, a top sect like Kangwu Academy was filled with ferocious people. I should restrain myself a little and not be too arrogant. What's your name? Let me report it to you. At this moment, Manager Lin raised his brush and opened a book as he asked Li Yu. Disciple Li Yu. Li Yu. What about your handwriting? What's your courtesy name? Disciple Li Yu. My courtesy name is Qing Lian. Li Yu hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still uttered his frightening name. Qing what? Manager Lin had just put down his brush when he heard the words Green Lotus. His hand trembled and a drop of ink spilled onto the ground. Green Lotus? Steward Lin stared at Li Yu with his eyes wide open. The expression on his face was very interesting. Ha! After glaring at Li Yu for a while, Steward Lin slapped the table. I knew it. I knew it. Yin Kongming, that scoundrel, was ignorant and incompetent. His brain was filled with paste. He actually gave you such a courtesy name? This has nothing to do with master. This name was chosen by this disciple myself. Don't cover for him. Before Li Yu could finish, he was interrupted by Steward Lin. Such an unbridled style, such a messy name. Who else could come up with it other than him? If I give you such a nickname, who would dare to use it? Do you dare to answer me? If someone dares to shout, this disciple will naturally dare to answer. Ah, you. You are indeed Kongming's disciple. When Steward Lin heard Li Yu's reply, his face froze, and he did not come back to his senses for a long time. After that, Steward Lin could not be bothered to pester Li Yu about that frightening courtesy name. After reporting to Li Yu, he gave him a jade token. Take this. This is the identity token of the library's managing disciple. Handing the token to Li Yu, Steward Lin instructed seriously, the library is an important place in the sect. A powerful array is set up. Without the token, you can't enter the library. Keep it well. Don't lose it. Yes. Li Yu agreed and kept the token. Follow me. Steward Lin stood up and led Li Yu out of the room. After passing through a bluestone path, a steep gorge was in front of them. The cliffs on both sides of the gorge were as smooth as walls. It was as if someone had sliced open the mountain peak with a sword, forming such a gorge. After passing through the gorge, the main hall of the library is behind us. Steward Lin pointed at the mouth of the gorge and said to Li Yu. Then, he led Li Yu forward. The gorge looked very steep, but it was not narrow. A path that was almost 100 meters wide directly connected the entire gorge. After passing through the gorge, there was a huge building complex ahead. There were a total of 9 huge halls that were about 100 meters tall and a few dozen smaller buildings. So this is the library. Steward Lin pointed at the huge buildings and smiled at Li Yu. This is the accumulation of my Kangwu Academy for over 10,000 years. All of these are, even though he was mentally prepared, Li Yu is still shocked by the scale of the library. There are so many places to store books. How many books were there? Although he was shocked, Li Yu was also very happy in his heart. There were so many books. After the system scanned and stored them all, the information obtained would definitely be very sufficient. He composed himself and followed Steward Lin all the way to the library. The library has a total of 9 halls and 14 pavilions. There are a myriad of books within it, and it's vast like an ocean. It's the accumulation of my Kangwu Academy for over 10,000 years to form its current scale. As Manager Lin walked, he introduced the library to Li Yu. The books in the library are all-encompassing. There are cultivation techniques, martial skills, secret arts, medicinal pills, talismans, tools, and array formations. There is nothing you don't have. Ordinary astronomy, geography, local customs, historical anecdotes, everything you need to know is there. The library is actually so abundant. Li Yu's eyes instantly glowed when he heard Steward Lin's introduction. Of course, Steward Lin raised his head proudly. The library of my Kangwu Academy is renowned for its abundance. I've practiced the Tao of reading a book is beneficial and stayed in the library for a few tens of years, yet I've only finished reading a small portion of the books. Reading a book is beneficial? Reading is the Tao? Li Yu pondered in his heart. He still wasn't clear about the Tao of this world. The love lotus allowed the azure lotus emperor weapon and heart of the demon god to attain the Tao of Supreme Master. Kongming was in charge of the logistics and practiced the Tao of knowing etiquette. Lin Jingji practiced the Tao of reading a book is beneficial and read with all his might. He even heard that a grandmaster fetched water every day and no one knew what kind of Tao he was trying to attain. These so-called Taos seemed to be unrelated to each other, and there was nothing in common. Could these Taos really allow one to possess the power to destroy the world? The Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and heart of the demon god had successfully attained the Tao in Li Yu's love lotus. The combined power of the Azure Lotus Emperor weapon and heart of the demon god was only at the level of Supreme Master. What was the measurement of this level? Was it strength or something else? The doubts in his heart grew bigger and bigger, and Li Yu's desire to scan the library grew even stronger. After a while, the two of them arrived at the entrance of the library. The entrance of the library was a palace-like building. After passing through the entrance, there was a wide corridor. Following the corridor, one could directly reach the 9 halls and 14 pavilions of the library. I'll leave this place to you. There aren't many things for the deacon of the library. One is to check the array of the library regularly every day to see if it's operating normally. The other is to record when someone comes to borrow books. After hurriedly giving a few instructions, Steward Lin got up and went into the library to read again. This place will be under my management in the future? Liu turned his head and glanced around before chuckling. System, scan all the books in the library and record them into the system's resource library. P.S. There are always people who are confused about the cultivation level. Don't force me to spoil, okay? The Azure Lotus DAO validation is a trap. The cultivation method of this world is also a trap. Don't take it for granted and spout nonsense. Chapter 70. Command received. Beginning scan. As the system's dull voice sounded, an invisible wave swept through the entire library. What's going on? In a large hall in the library, Steward Lin was sitting at a table and reading the books in his hands with great interest. However, he suddenly felt his heart palpitate. Sudden inspiration? Warning signs in my heart. What's going on? Steward Lin suddenly stood up, and the image of a scroll appeared above his head. An aura with a faint ink fragrance rippled out like a wave and swept through the entire library. There's actually no abnormality? Steward Lin sat back at the table with a blank expression. What's with the palpitations just now? Liu didn't know that Steward Lin had a warning sign in his heart because he scanned the library. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. So what if he had a warning sign in his heart? No one could discover anything from the system scan. They were still confused and didn't know what was going on. Consumed 350 points of energy. Scan complete. Recording of resources complete. Consumed so much energy? Hearing the system's notification, Liu frowned slightly. The energy consumed for the scan this time had exceeded Liu's expectations. The energy consumption was probably related to the array enveloping the library. It's because I don't have enough energy that I had no choice but to run to the library to scan. I didn't expect to still consume so much energy. The energy obtained from the previous world, opening the temporary recovery tunnel twice, and the consumption from bringing little Ting back, as well as the usual miscellaneous consumption, was only around 2,000 points. Now that he had spent another 300 points, he was only left with 2,000 points. He had to use it sparingly. Actually, it wasn't that Liu didn't have a way to increase his energy. Whether it was the crocodile ancestor's corpse or the heart of the demon god. As long as Liu was willing to exchange them for the system's energy, his energy would instantly increase exponentially. However, it was meaningless. Physical resources were much more powerful than pure energy. I don't need to use too much energy for now. Let's leave it at that for now. Liu placed his thoughts on the system's resource library. When he saw the countless newly scanned books, Liu grinned. Now I've completely emptied out the 10,000 years of history of Kangwu Academy. So much knowledge. I'm afraid it'll take a long time to transfer it all into my mind. Well, this is a happy worry. Liu sat down at the table and began to check the results of the scan. System, organize all the scanned information according to categories and form a catalog. Sorting out information. Catalog construction complete. Open it. With Liu's command, an interface instantly popped up in his mind. There was only a map-like icon in the middle, and the words main world information were displayed on it. After opening it, two scroll-like icons appeared. One was information on the cultivation world, and the other was information on the secular world. This interface isn't bad. It's very clear. Liu nodded and opened information on the cultivation world. Many more entries appeared. For example, information on sex, information on races, cultivation techniques, combat techniques, medicinal pills, talismans, formations, tools, and so on. In the information on the secular world, there are things like countries and powers, geographical distribution, customs and habits, laws and regulations, language, and so on. Damn, isn't this a little too much? With just a glance at the catalog, Liu felt slightly dizzy. Looks like I was mistaken before. How can I transfer all this information into my mind? Not only will I suffer, but there's also no need to do so. Since the system had already recorded all the information, there was no need to transfer it into his mind. Firstly, there were many things that he didn't need at all. Secondly, even if he wanted to use them, he could check with the system at any time. Pouring it into his mind was purely asking for trouble. Having collected so much information, I'm afraid I'm the most knowledgeable person in the world. Thinking about how Steward Lin had only finished a small portion of the books he had read in the library for tens of years, Liu couldn't help but want to laugh. What a pity, Liu sighed greedily. If there was an energy source similar to the one in the small divine realm in the bronze coffin, I would be able to scan all the information in the world just like in the previous world. Of course, Liu also knew that this was completely a dream. The energy source in the previous world, which was as large and safe as the small divine realm, was something that could only be found by chance. It was almost impossible to reproduce such a situation. With this information, I can understand this world further. As an outsider who was alone in a foreign land, the first thing he had to think about was how to survive safely. Although with Liu's strength, there wouldn't be any danger of survival, but it was still necessary to fully understand this world. System, organize a summary of this world for me. World summary has been organized. A stream of information flowed into Liu's mind, and the overview of this world circulated in Liu's mind. There's only one continent. It's 115,000 kilometers from east to west and 96,000 kilometers from north to south. The sky is round, and the earth is surrounded by the sea. This world is so small. Seeing this summary, Liu was obviously a little stunned. According to the situation of the Green Lotus Tao verification, the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god were equivalent to a supreme grandmaster. The level of power in this world was so high, but the world was so small. If the world wasn't big enough, how could it bear a powerful individual? If the world wasn't big enough, how could it have enough energy to give birth to a powerful individual? Saint-level experts could tear the sky and shatter the stars, right? Quasi-emperors could destroy the world, right? Although the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god couldn't be compared to a real great emperor, it should be equivalent to a quasi-emperor, right? It seemed that the race relations in this world weren't good, and they often fought until blood flowed like rivers. After so many years of fighting, this world hadn't been destroyed. Could the reason why this world hasn't been destroyed be related to the rules of power in this world? Then is it Tao? What exactly is the Tao of this world? Thinking of this, Liu hurriedly ordered the system, sort out this world's understanding of Tao. Sorting completed. In the blink of an eye, the system presented the Tao that it had sorted out in Liu's mind. My wish is my Tao. This was the first sentence that Liu saw. Since the system put this sentence at the top, it meant that this sentence was the most correct one among the understanding of Tao. My wish is my Tao. The most persistent dream in my heart is the Tao that I'm pursuing. Liu frowned and didn't speak for a long time. According to this understanding, the so-called Tao was the most persistent persistence in one's heart, the deepest dream, and the strongest desire. Achieving Tao was to clarify one's greatest dream. Tao verification was to work toward this dream and find a way to realize it. Achieving Tao was to realize one's dream. But how did the Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god achieve Tao verification? I don't even know what dreams I have. The Green Lotus Emperor weapon and the heart of the demon god don't have consciousness at all, let alone dreams. My dream was realized just by reading, Love Says. Isn't this nonsense? Liu was confused. The more he thought about it, the more he didn't understand. Achieving Tao in this world. It can't be that there's such a forceful method of achieving Tao through strength, right? Can the heavenly Tao be forcefully achieved? Chapter 71. As expected, I know too little. Is it because of my cultivation level? Even though Liu was able to utilize a great amount of energy, he was only at the beginning of his cultivation level. It was too difficult for him to figure out the pinnacle of strength in this world. Then, Let's start with a specific cultivation technique. The system scanned through all the books in the Kangwoo Academy. Liu had taken all the cultivation techniques and secret techniques in the academy, so it was too easy for him to find a cultivation technique to comprehend. In the 10,000 years of the Kangwoo Academy, only the founder of the sect, Ancestor Kangwoo, attained the supreme Tao. No one else attained the Tao since then. Why is that? Liu was stunned when he saw the introduction of the Kangwoo Academy in the system. He'd originally intended to choose a cultivation technique that led directly to the supreme grand Tao to cultivate. But he noticed that besides founding Ancestor Dar Parasol, only founding Ancestor Green Lotus had attained the supreme grand Tao in Dark Parasol Academy. Forget it. I'll just choose a cultivation technique that will allow me to become a grandmaster. In any case, I'm just going to comprehend it and don't intend to cultivate it right away. Liu's situation was very special. He had to travel through the myriad of worlds, so he couldn't be careless with his cultivation technique. He had to be able to display formidable strength in the main world and similarly formidable in other worlds. If a cultivation technique was only useful in this world, then it would be useless in another world. Such a cultivation technique was utterly meaningless. The rules of study? This is a cultivation technique. Judging from its name, it's simply like the middle school student's code of conduct. The corners of Liu's mouth twitched when he saw the cultivation technique provided by the system, and he couldn't help but ridicule the name of the cultivation technique. Let's take a look first. Since he wanted to understand the path of cultivation in this world, he had to experience it himself. System organized this cultivation technique and all the notes about the comprehension of this cultivation technique and send them to my mind. Liu instructed the system after he used the Bodhi tree's ability to enlighten him. After that, countless pieces of information flowed into his mind. Even with the support of the Bodhi tree, Liu's perception had increased greatly, and the light of wisdom continued to bloom. However, he was still dizzy from this massive amount of information. After all the information had been transmitted, Liu closed his eyes and sat at the side of the table. His mind sank into his mind. With the support of the Bodhi tree, he began to comprehend this cultivation method. The path of body cultivation is to use the acquired to supplement the innate. We, the human race, are born with weak bodies. Our bodies are not as strong as those of the demon race. Only by strengthening the inside and nourishing the outside can we make up for our congenital deficiencies. This is the heaven mending method. Body tempering technique, food nourishing technique, alchemy technique. True Qi originates from Qi and blood. His Qi and blood surged like a spring. He channeled his Qi and blood, condensed his true Qi, and used his true Qi to open his acupoints and communicate with the outside world. From there, the spirit will enter the body and be reborn. Information about the cultivation technique kept circulating in Liu's mind. With the support of the Bodhi tree, Liu analyzed and comprehended bit by bit. It's actually like this. This body tempering technique actually requires one to open 365 acupoints in the human body, guide the spirit into the body, and construct a complete cycle of true Qi to be reborn. After comprehending the body tempering technique, Liu could not help but compare it with the Infinite Sutra. Liu found another problem with this comparison. This body tempering technique is not as profound as the Infinite Sutra, but it does not exhaust the body tempering technique to the extreme. Even so, all 365 acupoints in the body are open and true Qi flows through the entire body, becoming one. I can actually cultivate all the parts of the body. Liu is also very clear about the difference. Body tempering technique was only the foundation of cultivation in this world. The true power came from the Tao. Therefore, the cultivation of the body was very shallow. It was far inferior to the cultivation methods of the previous world, which developed the body to the extreme. The cultivation methods of the previous world, Sea of Reincarnation, Tao Palace, for extremities and dragon transformation, all developed the body's potential and took the path of body tempering technique to the extreme. It was only at the immortal foundation stage that one began to cultivate the mind and comprehend the Tao. Sea of Reincarnation was the lower abdomen dantian. Tao Palace was the 5 chi in the chest and the power of the 5 internal organs. For extremities was the 4 limbs. Dragon transformation was the torso and spine. These were all body tempering techniques that developed the body's potential. It was only at the immortal foundation stage that one entered the spirit refinement stage. In terms of depth, the body tempering technique of this world is far inferior to the Infinite Sutra. Moreover, my body is the innate sage body, which is suitable for cultivating the Infinite Sutra. Therefore, it is better for me to cultivate the Infinite Sutra during the body tempering technique stage. During the body tempering technique stage, no matter what cultivation method one cultivated, the ultimate goal was to strengthen the body and strengthen oneself. Even if the world was different, the strength that originated from one's body would never weaken. For someone like Liu who had traveled all over the world, a cultivation method that developed the body's potential to the extreme was obviously the most suitable. I can use the body tempering technique of this world as a reference, but I can only cultivate the Infinite Sutra. After making up his mind, Liu continued to comprehend the next cultivation method. After body tempering technique is investigating objects to attain knowledge. Investigating objects to attain knowledge is also psychic enlightenment. In essence, it is a method to mobilize and control the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Investigating objects to attain knowledge is to investigate the principles of all things. Attaining knowledge is to understand the principles of all things. During cultivation, one must investigate the principles of all things and use them to communicate. Understanding the principles of all things and use them to comprehend the Tao. The 3 methods of psychic enlightenment are described by words, written by pen, and demonstrated by actions. So this is what psychic enlightenment means. Liu nodded to himself as he comprehended the to know everything chapter of the cultivation method. During the body tempering technique stage, a cultivator's strength came from their own body. At the psychic enlightenment stage, apart from their own strength, a cultivator could also mobilize the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. This was very impressive. With a punch, heaven and earth responded. In addition to one's own strength, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth also moved with this punch, gathering power into this punch. There was a limit to one's strength, but the power of heaven and earth was limitless. In this way, a cultivator at the psychic enlightenment stage could mobilize the spiritual chi of heaven and earth with a raise of their hand. It was not surprising that they had the power to move mountains and fill seas. But why does this method of borrowing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth feel so familiar? Liu frowned slightly, then laughed involuntarily. Wasn't this the same as him? After the mall space was opened, Liu could freely mobilize any power in the space. How similar was this to psychic enlightenment and borrowing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth? Psychic enlightenment was to mobilize the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and borrow the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. And Liu, as the master of the space, could directly mobilize the power of the space. Although there were differences in the specific methods, the essence was very similar. The mall space is the foundation. It will only become stronger and stronger in the future. As the master of the space, I can freely mobilize the power of the space, but the way I use it is very simple and crude. It is far from being as delicate and exquisite as the cultivation techniques of this world. Liu raised his head, and a bright smile appeared on his face. Looks like the cultivation techniques of this world are very useful to me as well. And this is only the cultivation techniques of the Kangwu Academy. If I can gather all the cultivation techniques of the various sects in this world, the way I can utilize the power of the space will be even more varied. Liu stood up and walked out of the door. He raised his head and looked at the distant horizon as he secretly made up his mind. Should I give some fortuitous encounters to others again? Chapter 72. I'll make preparations for this first. When the time is right, you can come online, old grandpa. Liu smiled and returned to his room. The art of righteous heart, which was the art of attaining the Tao and proving the Tao, was too mysterious. Using one's heart to understand the heaven's heart, using one's heart to prove the heaven's heart, and in the end, the heaven's heart would become one's heart. Liu expressed that he did not understand these mysterious things. After all, attaining the Tao was closely related to one's cultivation, life experience, and relationships. How could Liu have many life experiences? He did not even know his own heart's desire, let alone attaining the Tao. Let's leave it at that for now. Liu cast aside the art and began to think about his future plans. For now, with the Kangwu Academy as the foundation, it shouldn't be a problem to establish a foothold. However, I don't just want to establish a foothold. Since I've created the identity of Founder Green Lotus, why don't I use the Kangwu Academy? Why don't I use this identity to control the entire Kangwu Academy for my own use? Liu smiled faintly. On the surface, he was a disciple of the Kangwu Academy, but he could secretly control the entire Kangwu Academy. Just thinking about it was interesting. However, I can't do it now. Liu pondered for a moment and understood that this idea was still very immature. Attaining the Tao required the Azure Lotus Emperor armament. Liu himself had not reached the supreme level. It was too difficult for him to pretend to be the Founder Green Lotus in front of a group of masters and a few great masters. Even if he came up with a bunch of excuses and could even use the Azure Lotus Emperor armament, he was not completely confident that he could convince them. Once he could not convince them, it would definitely cause countless troubles. When that time came, Liu would have to fight his way out by force. It would be impossible for him to control the Kangwu Academy. Founder Green Lotus, huh? It seems like I can really create a Founder Green Lotus. Liu stretched out his finger and lightly tapped the table beside him. A mysterious smile appeared on his face. If I can refine the heart of the Shifter Emperor into a clone, the combination of the heart of the Shifter Emperor and the Azure Lotus Emperor armament will be the complete Founder Green Lotus. Liu recalled that in the previous world, there seemed to be a doppelganger technique called I Chi turning 3 pure ones, and even a doppelganger technique called Taoist body. It seemed very feasible. Thinking of this, Liu quickly asked the system to display the clone spell from the previous world. This doesn't seem to work. Seeing the cloning secret technique displayed by the system, Liu shook his head helplessly. Whether it was the 1 Chi into 3 pure ones or the Taoist body secret skill, they were all secret skills based on one's own strength. The power Liu could use was very powerful, but his own cultivation was far from enough, so it was impossible for him to use this kind of secret technique. Of course, it wasn't as if there was no other way. Liu could use the power of the heart of the demon god to drive the Tao body mystic technique and cultivate a Tao body. However, Liu's spiritual power was too weak, and he couldn't split his spiritual soul into the Taoist body. The Taoist body, though was refined, was simply a body without a spirit. My divine soul is too weak. My divine soul, my divine soul. Liu's eyes lit up, and he suddenly remembered that there was still pure spiritual power in the resource warehouse that he hadn't used. After the divine thought of the great sage body was broken down and the cultivation comprehension and battle experience were extracted, the remaining pure spiritual power was still rotting in the resource warehouse. The great sage body is equivalent to the great emperor. Although the divine thought has been suppressed and its foundation has been cut off, the remaining spiritual power is still very powerful. It's more than enough to refine a Taoist body. Liu was a little excited. With the Taoist body of the Green Lotus Grandmaster, he could do whatever he wanted in the origin world. I only need to split a trace of my divine soul, and it won't harm my body. Moreover, there's still the spiritual power refined from the demons killed in the volcanic ruins to make up for the loss. In this way, it seems that I can really get the Green Lotus Grandmaster out by using a trick. Liu suppressed the eagerness in his heart and calmed himself down. I should let the system verify this situation to see if there's any problem. After all, the divine soul is no small matter, so it's better to be safe. Thinking of this, Liu quickly let the system verify his idea. System, according to the conditions I gave, calculate the possibility of refining a Taoist body. Using the heart of the demon god, the great sage body, the spiritual power of the divine thought, and a trace of the user's divine soul as raw materials to refine a Taoist body. Starting feasibility analysis. Calculation completed. After calculation, the current conditions are enough to refine a Taoist body. Very good. Hearing the system's conclusion, Liu is overjoyed. It's just that this place is obviously not suitable. Let's wait until I return to the store space. Liu turned his head to look at the library and frowned slightly. The purpose of taking up the position of a deacon in the library was to scan the library's information, and now the scan has been completed. The deacon's job is a little redundant. Fortunately, there's nothing specific, or I wouldn't want to do it anymore. Finally, it was noon, and Liu took advantage of the lunch break to leave the library in a hurry. After finding an empty corner, Liu stepped into the store space. Little Ting sat quietly in the courtyard, fiddling with a bunch of wild flowers in her hands. Seeing this, Liu suddenly felt that it was not appropriate to leave little Ting alone in the immortal mansion. It was such a big place, and she was the only one in the empty house. For a 5- or 6-year-old girl, it seemed a little inappropriate. Fortunately, the Green Lotus avatar will be completed soon. In the future, I'll let the Green Lotus avatar take little Ting to live in the academy. Who would dare to say anything about Ancestor Green Lotus taking in a disciple? Liu glanced at little Ting, but did not go forward. He turned and entered the garden of the immortal mansion. Liu came to the side of the Green Lotus pond and took out the heart of the demon god. System, refine a Taoist body according to the method calculated just now. Following Liu's order, the heart of the demon god shook violently and floated into the air. A brilliant brilliance bloomed from the heart of the demon god, and green gas lingered in the sky. Oomph! Liu let out a muffled groan as he felt a sharp pain in his head. An invisible force had cut off a part of his soul. Liu hurriedly transferred pure soul power from the resource warehouse to replenish the loss of his soul. Only then did he regain his breath. The part of his soul that was cut off entered the heart of the demon god. Liu suddenly realized that his consciousness seemed to be divided into 2 parts. One part was himself, and the other part was the heart of the demon god. The pure soul power of the divine thought of the sage body in the resource warehouse instantly merged with the heart of the demon god. Liu's strand of divine soul grew rapidly under the pure and vast soul energy of the god will, growing stronger and stronger. In the blink of an eye, the pure soul power of the divine thought completely merged with Liu's part of his soul and became one. Thump, thump, thump. The heart of the demon god started to beat violently. The huge heartbeat sounded like a dull war drum. A brilliant brilliance bloomed. As the brilliance flowed, a tall figure gradually appeared. Ha ha! My ancestor Green Lotus has finally appeared. As soon as the tall figure appeared, he looked up to the sky and laughed wildly. He was extremely ostentatious. Chapter 73. They actually don't look alike at all. Liu looked at the Green Lotus avatar in front of him and was a little surprised. I only used a trace of my spirit. This avatar was born from the heart of the demon god. So, it looks very similar to the Lotus Emperor. The Green Lotus avatar looked about 20 years old. It was tall and well-proportioned. Its face was like jade, handsome and high-spirited. Wearing the simple green robe that it took out from the resource vault, the Green Lotus avatar stood there casually. It faintly looked like it was going to conquer the world. That transcendence that was above all living beings made one feel reverence. Very good. Liu could feel the Green Lotus avatar's fusion with Tao and the heavens as one. He nodded in admiration. The Green Lotus Tao body has been refined. It's time for him to make an appearance. Kangwu Mountain seemed rather peaceful in the afternoon. The academy teachers and students who had been planting lotus flowers everywhere for the entire morning still felt tired, even though they had cultivated well and their stamina far exceeded that of ordinary people. The scene of drinking and chatting in groups of 2 or 3 was much less. "Brother Tan, I heard that you planted lotus flowers for a whole morning." At the foot of Kangwoo Mountain, a few academy students sat in a pavilion by the river and drank wine. One of the students asked another. With Instructor Han leading the team, we only followed to clean up the loose ends. The so-called lotus flowers are actually just planting lotus seeds along the river. Ancestral Master Green Lotus left behind the sonorous voice of the great Tao in the land of Tao verification. The mountain head plans to plant the lotus flowers along the river all the way to the land of Ancestral Master's Tao verification. Brother Tan raised his wine cup and answered with a smile. "Yes, we're also planting lotus flowers along the river. There are a total of 10 teams planting lotus flowers in 10 sections. In the entire morning, we planted lotus flowers all over the river. Only our Kangwoo Academy can do such a thing." Another scholar nodded with a smile. "After planting the lotus flowers, we still need to wait for them to germinate. Even if we use spells to activate the lotus seeds, it will still take some time for them to grow. If we want to see the scene of the lotus flowers, we still have to wait a while." Brother Tan smiled and continued, "Planting lotus flowers everywhere is indeed a little tiring. However, for Ancestral Master Green Lotus, we are willing to do it. Of course, Ancestral Master Green Lotus's Tao verification. The morale of our Kangwoo Academy is high." The other scholars agreed. Brother Tan, did you just say that the lotus seed will take some time to grow?" The scholar beside him suddenly asked in surprise. "Yeah? What happened?" Brother Tan turned his head to look at this scholar and felt a little strange. "Brother Wong, what do you mean by this? Lotus. Quick, look. Lotus flowers in the river. Lotus flowers have already grown in the river." The royal brother jumped up and pointed at the river outside the pavilion, shouting in surprise. This is..." Everyone looked at the river and was stunned by the scene in front of them. Originally, there was only murmuring water on the surface of the river. At this moment, green lotus leaves rushed out of the water and stretched out to their heart's content. Bright lotus flowers broke out of the water and bloomed brilliantly. "Not just here, look over there." A scholar pointed at the river in the distance and shouted. Everyone looked up and saw that the river was covered in green lotus leaves from far to near, and bright lotus flowers bloomed one after another. The lotuses swayed as if they were cheering for the arrival of a certain existence. "Over there, look, that's the place where the patriarch confirmed his Tao." The scholars ran out of the pavilion and looked up at the place where the patriarch confirmed his Tao thousands of miles away. Clang, a clear and melodious sound of a bell rang. The heaven and earth shook as the wind and clouds surged. A brilliant beam of light shot up into the sky and transformed into a gigantic lotus flower out of thin air. A lotus flower in the blue sea and clear sky. It supported the sky and the sea, supporting the heaven and earth. The brilliant light illuminated the horizon and competed with the sun and the moon. Patriarch Green Lotus. Patriarch has shown his power. Patriarch Green Lotus has shown his power. At this moment, the entire Kangwoo Mountain was in an uproar. Countless people ran out cheering as they looked at the beautiful green lotus in the sky. Their faces were filled with excitement and joy. Patriarch has come out of seclusion. Mountain Elder Qin Muyu was overjoyed as he shouted in a flurry. Patriarch Green Lotus has returned from confirming his Tao. Quickly prepare to welcome him. Quick! With the Mountain Elder's order, the stewards and instructors of Kangwoo Academy hurried to work. After a while, everyone from Kangwoo Academy gathered at the huge plaza in front of the main hall on the mountain peak. Mountain Elder Qin Muyu led the group. Beside him were Yin Kongming, Lin Jingji, and the other great masters. Behind them were the other great masters. The remaining instructors and students stood neatly in the plaza as they looked in the direction of the green lotus. They were filled with excitement and anticipation. In the distance, the towering green lotus gradually faded away. A tall figure in a green robe appeared in midair. The figure stood with his hands behind his back as he stood in the void. Beautiful lotus flowers bloomed continuously under the figure's feet. The flowers bloomed and withered, changing constantly. The figure turned to look in the direction of Kangwoo Mountain and seemed to nod slightly. Then, he started walking towards Kangwoo Mountain. Countless lotus flowers bloomed under the green-robed figure's feet. As he walked, a path paved with lotus flowers appeared in midair. He's here. He's here. Patriarch is finally back. Seeing the green-robed figure walking over, Kangwoo Mountain cheered again. Welcome back, Patriarch Green Lotus. Welcome back, Patriarch Green Lotus. Welcome back, Patriarch Green Lotus. A tsunami of cheers rang out. The entire Kangwoo Academy bowed deeply to the green-robed figure walking over and shouted in unison. The green-robed figure walked on the lotus flowers in midair. He seemed to be walking slowly, but he arrived above Kangwoo Mountain's plaza in the blink of an eye. Greetings, Patriarch. Everyone from Kangwoo Mountain bowed respectfully to the green-robed figure. Everyone please rise. The blue lotus avatar smiled and waved his hand. A gentle force lifted up all the kneeling people in the square. Thank you, Patriarch. Everyone cheered and bowed to express their gratitude. Beside Patriarch is... Only then did the people of Kangwoo Mountain realize that Patriarch Green Lotus was holding the hand of a 5- or 6-year-old girl. The little girl hid behind Patriarch Green Lotus timidly, as if she was afraid of this scene. Patriarch, disciple Qin Muyu, is the mountain elder of Kangwoo Academy. Today, Patriarch has returned. Everyone in Kangwoo Mountain is overjoyed. Congratulations to Patriarch for attaining the supreme Great Tao and establishing the foundation of Kangwoo Mountain for eternity. Qin Muyu bowed to Patriarch Green Lotus. Congratulations to Patriarch for attaining the supreme Great Tao. Everyone in the plaza cheered again and bowed to Patriarch Green Lotus. Everyone, please dispense with the formalities. Patriarch Green Lotus smiled and helped everyone up. Patriarch, you have returned. We are overjoyed. Patriarch, please bestow us your name. Qin Muyu took out a jade booklet and raised it above his head, presenting it to Patriarch Green Lotus. Liu had plundered Kangwoo Mountain's 10,000 years of accumulation. He naturally understood the meaning behind Qin Muyu's action. This was a way to verify one's identity. Although everyone in Kangwoo Mountain believed that Patriarch Green Lotus was their own patriarch, and that no supreme great master would be so bored as to impersonate someone else's patriarch, this verification process was still necessary. Since Liu wanted the Green Lotus clone to be the Patriarch Green Lotus, how could he not be prepared? I am a disciple of Kangwoo Mountain's Green Lotus lineage. I once studied painting under Duke Wangchuan. During the Battle of Chihan Mountain, Duke Wangchuan's blood dyed Chihan Mountain red, and all his disciples withered away. I'm the only one who has managed to survive until now. Sigh. Patriarch Green Lotus sighed with a bleak face. He waved his hand and scattered a ray of light, lighting up a green ink imprint on the jade booklet. Everyone in Kangwoo Mountain was overjoyed when they saw the lit imprint. With the imprint of their secret technique lit up, Patriarch Green Lotus's identity was confirmed. My future and the past are gone. From today onwards, my name is Li Bai, Tai Bai, and Green Lotus. Greetings, Patriarch Green Lotus. After the jade booklet was named, everyone in Kangwoo Mountain bowed before Patriarch Green Lotus again. Chapter 74. I've been away for 1,000 years. Now that the talents of Kangwoo Mountain have gathered, I'm relieved. All of you have done well. The Green Lotus avatar scanned the square and nodded approvingly at Qin Muyu and the rest. We don't deserve Ancestral Master's praise. All we can do is be cautious and conscientious. Now that Ancestral Master has returned, our Kangwu Mountain will truly prosper. Hearing the Green Lotus Avatar's praise, Qin Muyu and the rest were so excited that their faces flushed red. For the sect to prosper, my Tao isn't the key. Outstanding juniors are the key to the sect's prosperity. The Green Lotus Avatar smiled and pulled Little Tingting over. Little Tingting, don't be afraid. Come, meet these uncles. Greetings, uncles. Little Tingting bowed timidly to Qin Muyu and the rest. You flatter me. You flatter me. Qin Muyu and the rest didn't dare to accept Little Tingting's bow and quickly moved aside. This little girl was brought back by the ancestral master, who knew how she was related to the ancestral master. It wasn't good to mess up the seniority. Ancestral master, this little girl is... Qin Muyu hurriedly asked the Green Lotus Avatar. Her name is Jiang Ting. I brought her back from outside. She has extraordinary talent. I plan to keep her by my side and let her cultivate with me. The Green Lotus Avatar patted Little Tingting's head and answered with a smile. Little Tingting twisted her body uncomfortably. Although she knew that this big brother was the same person as Big Brother Liu, she still felt a little awkward. Everyone was shocked. The ancestral master was bringing her by his side to cultivate? Was he taking her in as a disciple? Then, this seniority, she's not considered my disciple. In terms of seniority, she's equivalent to your disciples. It wasn't good to raise Little Tingting's status too high. It was enough to make her equivalent to Qin Muyu and the rest disciples. Yes, Qin Muyu and the rest secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If Little Tingting really became the disciple of ancestral Master Green Lotus, they would have to greet this 5- or 6-year-old little Uncle Master every day. Find a place for me. From now on, I'll be staying in Kangwu Mountain. The Green Lotus clone looked up at Kangwu Mountain and sighed. It's been 1,000 years, but things have changed. Yes, this disciple will arrange it immediately. Qin Muyu promptly gestured to Yin Kongming. Yin Kongming promptly got up and led Liu and Yin Luo to arrange a residence for Ancestor Green Lotus. Now wait, when Ancestor Blue Lotus saw Liu, he suddenly called out to Liu in surprise. To think that Ancestor Green Lotus was pleasantly surprised. He glanced at Liu and exclaimed happily, I didn't expect you to have such a peerless talent. The rise of my blue parasol sect is just around the corner. Ancestral Master Green Lotus thinks so highly of him. Who is this young man? Yin Kongming's new disciple? For Ancestor Green Lotus to praise her like this, she must be a peerless beauty. Is that Liu? Is that Liu who doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken? He actually has such a talent? He actually made Ancestor Green Lotus praise him like this? When Ancestor Green Lotus praised him, everyone in the square stared at Liu. Hee. Let's see if you can still say that I don't even have the strength to truss a chicken. I'm already a peerless talent. All of you are so envious. Liu secretly laughed when he heard the crowd's discussion. All right, he praised himself. Only someone like Liu, who loved to show off, would do such a senseless thing. Young man, are you willing to cultivate with me? Ancestor Green Lotus asked Liu with a smile. Actually, this was Liu's goal. Following the Green Lotus clone, Liu would have a lot of freedom in the future with the protection of the ancestor's identity. It would be convenient for him to do anything. As for praising himself, it was actually just an excuse. It was an excuse to catch the ancestor's eye. I've already acknowledged you as my master. Ancestor, I'm really unable to. Before Liu could finish, Yin Kongming hurriedly pushed Liu away and interrupted him. Ancestor, this disciple of mine has extraordinary talent. It's a great fortune for him to be able to cultivate by your side. Please take pity on him and allow him to cultivate by your side. The Green Lotus clone laughed. I won't steal your disciple. Is there a need to specifically point out that he's your disciple? All right, he'll cultivate with me in the future. Yin Kongming's face turned red. He laughed dryly and didn't dare to reply. That's great. That's great. Yin Luo clapped excitedly. Thank you, Ancestor. Liu had achieved his goal, and he was secretly happy. Then, everyone dispersed. Li Yu and the Green Lotus clone brought Xiao Tingting to the residence that the Kangwu Academy had prepared for them. This was a peak in the Kangwu mountain range called the River Gazing Peak. In the past, it was where Duke Wangchuan cultivated, and that was how it got its name. This was because Li Yu had the Green Lotus clone impersonate Duke Wangchuan's disciple of the Azure Pill Division. When the Kangwu Academy arranged the residence, this was the first place they thought of. The so-called Duke Wangchuan's lineage was simply nonsense by Li Yu. This was because in the entire Kangwu Mountain, only this lineage was nearly extinct. There was no need to worry about being exposed, and it was the easiest to impersonate. Although this lineage had already gone extinct, the residence that was left behind was still spotless under the effects of the formation. There wasn't the slightest bit of dilapidation. It's all right. Let's stay here for now. Li Yu glanced at the residence on the River Gazing Peak and nodded. He held Xiao Tingting's hand and walked in. Then, Li Yu and Xiao Tingting settled down on the River Gazing Peak. With the name of Ancestor Green Lotus, the people of Kangwu Mountain would definitely not slight Li Yu and Xiao Tingting in the slightest. Li Yu didn't care about himself, but those who dared to provoke him would definitely be dealt with horribly. Now that Xiao Tingting also had this identity, she was completely the little princess of Kangwu Mountain. Presumably, there wouldn't be anyone foolish enough to provoke her. For now, the foundation of the origin world has been laid. With the Green Lotus clone, I can control the Kangwu Academy from the overall situation. And with Yin Kongming, I can take care of the details. This way, the foundation will be unbreakable. The merchant city had already been established, and the origin world had gained control of the faction. After busying himself for so long, he finally had the capital to settle down. Li Yu breathed a sigh of relief. But I keep feeling that something is wrong with this origin world. Whether it's the Green Lotus Imperial Weapon's muddle-headed attainment of the Tao, the unique cultivation technique that draws upon the power of heaven and earth, or even the geographical structure of the entire world, it's all a little strange. The information collected is still insufficient. The 10 sacred lands of Confucianism, the 9 paradise of Taoism, and the 8 great temples of Buddhism, coupled with the demon factions, these places must have all sorts of books and records. Looks like I have to think of a way to get a copy of all these books. When a supreme grandmaster attains the Tao, all the factions in the world will come to congratulate him. Now that Ancestor Green Lotus has returned, Kangwu Academy will definitely prepare to celebrate. When the time comes, young man, I will give you an opportunity. Li Yu secretly laughed. Chapter 75. Li Yu stretched lazily. Under little Tingting's disdainful gaze, he yawned and got up from the bed. Brother is a lazy cat. I'm already so old, and I'm still sleeping in. Little Tingting stretched out her small hand and scratched her face. She looked at Li Yu with a smile. Every day, I wake up naturally and count money until my hands cramp. This is brother's dream. Li Yu chuckled and pretended to be fierce. He reached out and rubbed little Tingting's face. Little Tingting screamed and ran away. System notification. The storage space of the Book of the Highest Heavens is about to be full. Do you want to recycle the items into the system's resource vault? Book of the Highest Heavens? Full? What the F asterisk CK? How many days has it been? That kid has already gained so much. Li Yu was just about to walk out of the room when he suddenly heard the system notification, causing him to stop in his tracks. A few days? Wait a minute. According to the time ratio, a day here is equivalent to a year in Zhou Yi's place. In other words, Zhou Yi has been working hard for several years. Li Yu suddenly remembered that the time in the two worlds was not synchronized. He couldn't help but laugh. It seems that Zhou Yi has already made a name for himself. He can provide me with a steady stream of resources. Very good. Recycle all the items provided by Zhou Yi. Li Yu quickly gave the system an order. In an instant, a large pile of materials appeared in the system's resource vault. The most conspicuous thing was a large pile of corpses. There were hundreds of corpses of human beings, demons, and demon beasts. F***CK. Zhou Yi is so decisive. Is he planning to level up by killing monsters all the way? Looking at the large pile of corpses, Liu was dumbfounded. All right, this is also a resource. Liu smiled and shook his head. He gave the system an order. Extract cultivation insights, combat experience, and pure soul power. Recycle the rest into energy. In the blink of an eye, all the corpses in the resource vault disappeared. Only cultivation insights, combat experience, and pure soul power were left. They were stored in the resource vault by the system. The energy left in the system, which was originally only slightly more than 2,000, instantly increased to more than 6,800. Looks like the strength of these people that Zhou Yi killed isn't too bad. I actually gained a few thousand points of energy. I won't have to worry about energy for a while. Liu nodded and turned his attention to the other resources. The rest of the items were weapons and the like. Upon seeing the spirit weapons used by the Sea of Samsara and Dao Palace Realm cultivators, Liu shook his head. Except for the soul-shaking clock, which had been used by Liu, more than a dozen weapons above the holy level were still moldy in the resource warehouse. Now that Zhou Yi had handed over this junk, it was really useless. Then I'll just convert it to energy. Wait. Liu was about to recycle all the junk into energy when he suddenly remembered that he was still the ancestral master Green Lotus. As the founder of a sect, how could he not have something to bestow upon his disciples? If he was too stingy, no one would like him even if he was the patriarch. These pieces of junk are just right. Upon seeing these Sea of Samsara and Dao Palace Realm spirit weapons, Liu had already thought of where they could be put to good use. Weapons and items of this level will not cause the world's power to interfere if they are used in this world. It's just right to bestow them upon my disciples. Yes, there are also thousands of spirit weapons below the Dragon Realm in the Azure Thearchus tomb. When necessary, I can bestow them. Thinking of this, Liu smiled and nodded. An ancestral master with great power, a wealthy ancestral master, and a generous ancestral master would definitely be deeply loved and respected by his disciples. As long as he bestowed some benefits from time to time, the entire Kangwu Mountain would definitely be grateful to him. With sufficient strength and prestige, it would be easy for him to control the entire sect. From then on, he would have hundreds of responses. Once he spoke, everyone would follow. Ha ha, very good, let's do that. Liu looked at the spirit weapons in the resource warehouse and laughed. These things can't be stored in the warehouse. I can only put them in the store. Although Patriarch Green Lotus was Liu's clone, the system was still bound to Liu himself. The Green Lotus clone could not control the system. I'll give the Green Lotus clone the authority to enter and exit the store. I'll put these things in the Divine Abodes warehouse. When I need them, I'll let the Green Lotus clone get them. Thinking of this, Liu took a step forward and entered the system store. He stored all the weapons and spiritual treasures below the saint level in the Immortal Mansion's warehouse. In the next instant, Liu returned to the courtyard on the Wangchuan Mountain. Little Ting, I'm up. Come and comb my hair. Back in the courtyard, Liu redeemed a rot-tan chair from the system. He lay on the rot-tan chair lazily and called out to Little Ting outside. I'm such a lazy bum. Little Ting walked over with a comb and made a face at Liu with a pout. Liu smiled, pointed to the hair on his head, and lay on the rot-tan chair with his eyes closed. Little Ting walked up and combed Liu's hair with a comb. Liu's mind turned to Zhou Yi again. A few years have passed. Judging from the harvest, Zhou Yi seems to be fighting monsters all the way to level up. What did he do? Thinking of this, Liu asked the system to remotely connect to the book of the highest heavenly book. He wanted to know what Zhou Yi had done in the past few years. System, let the spirit of the heavenly book report on Zhou Yi's events in the past few years. Well, there's no need to talk about trivial matters. The system instantly connected to the book of the highest heavenly book. The spirit of the heavenly book immediately reported to Liu what Zhou Yi had done in the past few years. It turned out to be like this. After listening to the spirit of the heavenly book's report, Li Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It turned out that since Li Yu returned, Zhou Yi left the underground space of the Bronze Immortal Palace and came to the territory of the Tianxian sect. Since Zhou Yi had newly obtained the Xianyuan sword, he tested the power of the Xianyuan sword nearby. After cutting open a small hill with a sword, it actually attracted the covetous eyes of a disciple of the Taishan sect. Zhou Yi angrily beheaded this disciple of the Taishan sect and then poked a hornet's nest. The 3 friends and 4 friends of this Taishan sect disciple, relatives, and teachers, a large group of people came to the door. Zhou Yi fought all the way and used all his skills. He even used up all his energy to exchange for many one-time skills. Only then did he manage to escape. When his energy was exhausted, the spirit of the heavenly book gave Zhou Yi a hint that corpses could also be exchanged for energy. Therefore, facing the pursuit of the Taishan sect, Zhou Yi embarked on the path of no return of fighting monsters to level up. Because Zhou Yi revealed his divine body and the great void handprint, it attracted the attention of the Ji family. Zhou Yi originally had a good impression of the Ji family because of his bloodline. He didn't expect that the Ji family didn't recognize his so-called identity as a descendant of the great emperor at all. They even insulted the great emperor Xianyuan and denied the existence of the great emperor Xianyuan. In a fit of anger, Zhou Yi fell out with the Ji family again. Although Zhou Yi's strength had grown rapidly in the past few years, and he was already a peak powerhouse of the Dao Palace, he was still no match for the experts of the Ji family. At this moment, Zhou Yi was running away. What the hell? This is completely the treatment of a protagonist. After listening to the spirit of the Heavenly Book's report, Li Yu really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This style of ridicule, this style of causing trouble wherever he went, was completely the treatment of a protagonist. Fortunately, Zhou Yi fought monsters to level up all the way and even plundered all the corpses. Although he was chased away, it wasn't that he couldn't survive. Now, Zhou Yi was almost in the northern region. Northern region? This is a good place. A place rich in source ores and with the supreme heavenly book system. As long as I scan it, it's better than any source heaven master. It seems that Zhou Yi can still make a name for himself here. A strange smile appeared on Li Yu's face. Very good. I can harvest a lot of sorcerers next. It seems that even the Qilin Immortal Medicine, Monkey King, and Divine Silkworm were all cut out from sorcerers, right? Hee hee. Chapter 76. System. Let the spirit of the heavenly book remind the book of changes that there are good things in the source stones. Li was in a very good mood. After giving the system to the book of changes, this was the first real harvest. Although it was not very eye-catching, as long as the book of changes progressed, Li Yu would have a steady stream of harvests. Now that the book of changes was about to reach the northern region, with the scanning ability of the heavenly book of the highest heavenly book, if the book of changes went to stone gambling, it would definitely be a huge profit. As long as the book of changes had a harvest, the various ancient treasures in the source stones would become Li Yu's. Forget about Brother Monkey and Princess Divine Silkworm. But the immortal Qilin medicine. I won't be polite. Ha ha ha. Li Yu was grinning from ear to ear. Brother, I've combed your hair. Little Ting Ting took the ivory comb and knocked on Li Yu's head a few times. Lazy bum, get up quickly. All right. Li Yu smiled helplessly, stood up from the rattan chair, and reached out to pick up Little Ting Ting. Let's go. Hee. Little Ting Ting's clear laughter was as pleasant as wind chimes. After accompanying Little Ting Ting for breakfast, he let the Green Lotus clone take Little Ting Ting around Kangwu Mountain. Li Yu returned to the store space. The foundation of the main world is already solid. What I have to consider now is the development of the system store. Li Yu sat down in the pavilion beside the Bodhi tree and began to think about his next plan. The store space must be expanded, and the resources for building the store must be constantly enriched. So, I have to consider selling the system again. System, I've completed the first step of the main mission. What's the second step now? The last time he sold the system, he activated the main mission, which required him to build and sell a system within a year. Liu completed this mission and raised his authority to the second level. To expand the store space, he had to continuously raise his authority. To raise his authority, he could only rely on completing missions. The user has completed the initial main mission and activated the long-term mission of building the store. The activation conditions for the advancement mission have been met. Do you wish to activate the advancement mission? Activate. Liu ordered. Promotion mission activated. Advanced mission. The user sells the system in more than 10 worlds and establishes a shopping center in the target world. Shopping center? What do you mean? Liu was baffled when he heard the term shopping center. A stronghold. Sounded like a target of severe punishment. The mall stronghold is the anchor point of the system mall in the target world. When the user has enough authority, they can mount the mall space on the target world through the location of the mall stronghold. So that's the case. Hearing the system's explanation, Liu nodded. As the positioning coordinates of the mall, this was worth the effort. Every set of coordinates represented a world, and it was also a path of retreat. Who knew what would happen in the future? If he couldn't survive in a certain world, he could at least find a place to escape. How should we build this stronghold? Liu began to pay more attention to the mall. He quickly asked the system for more details. The construction location of the stronghold in the mall will be selected by the user and provided with materials with sufficient energy level. The system will build it directly. The appearance can be determined by the user, and the range of appearance selection includes all known building types. I see. Hearing this, Liu frowned slightly. What kind of materials are required to have sufficient energy? What kind of materials are required to have sufficient energy? I'll use the materials of the weapons in the previous world as an example to explain. The energy level of the materials used to build the mall stronghold must not be lower than Dragon Realm's spiritual weapon materials. Dragon Realm spiritual weapon materials? That's good. After hearing the material requirements, Liu heaved a sigh of relief. Dragon Realm spiritual weapon materials were not too rare. As long as it was not a world with too low a level of power, such materials could be found. As for worlds with too low a level of power, what if he could not find the materials? Liu wondered what was the use of such a low-level world. System, when can I enter the other worlds to sell the system? After understanding the relevant information, Liu began to ask the next question. The advanced mission has been activated. The user can activate the mission at any time to enter other worlds. At any time? Very good. Liu nodded. Now that the Green Lotus avatar is guarding Kanwu Mountain, there shouldn't be any problems. The Tao actualization ceremony that requires attention is still far away. There's still time to transmigrate to another world and come back. We can consider the problem of entering the next world. All right, system, now that I've been transported to another world, how long will I stay? Is it still only a year? Liu suddenly remembered the previous time when he was transported out. He could only stay for a year. He quickly asked the system. The advanced mission has no time limit. The user can decide the length of stay. However, before returning, the system must complete the sale. Otherwise, you will not be able to return. No time limit? Very good. This news was very beneficial to Liu. Due to the difference in time between the two worlds, Liu would have enough time after being transported to another world. He could use this time to cultivate and increase his strength quickly. Since there's nothing else, I can activate the advanced mission. Liu's heart skipped a beat. He informed the Green Lotus avatar that he had left behind in Kanwu Mountain and then activated the advanced mission. Advanced mission activated. User, please draw the initial mission destination. Draw again. Can I choose a world? User's authority is insufficient. Unable to choose a world. All right, authority. Liu pursed his lips and waved his hand. Then let's do it. I want to see what kind of world it is this time. Selecting destination, a roulette wheel appeared. In the middle of the roulette wheel was a pointer. There were countless fan-shaped grids around it. Sun God, Chaos, Immortal Gourd, Battle Break, Immortal Rebel. Seeing the words displayed in the fan-shaped grids, Liu was stunned. There are a few more worlds than last time. Is this because of the increase in authority? Whoosh! The roulette will spun rapidly. Is it time to try my luck again? Why does this thing feel a little like something from a casino? It's all the same. I have to try my luck. Liu smiled and shook his head. He waved his hand casually. Stop. As soon as he said that, the rapidly spinning roulette wheel came to an abrupt stop. The long pointer suddenly pointed, haha. It's actually here? That's interesting. Seeing the destination world that the pointer was pointing to, Liu could not help but laugh out loud. There's a fellow from the same hometown in this world. After arriving in that world, should he greet him first? I'll ask him, brother, you're wearing it too? Ha ha. Even if it was a prank, Liu could not help but laugh when he thought of that scene. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.